He said, well, to be honest, their emissions are not that bad.
To be fair, they are decarbonising. If you take your country back to the Stone Age, it's which is basically what Labour want to do for us.
Right.
Ed Miliband, that is his aim.
Yeah.
You see the stuff also gets some. Oh no, we're not going to have to change our lives. It's absolutely explicit in every single document.
Do you know what I'm going to look into?
Committee.
How many of this bleeding cabinet are vegetarians? Because I think that's an issue.
Well, it's an eating disorder.
Well, there we are. Can't say fairer than that. Julia Hartley-Brewer, welcome all vegetarians and vegans.
It's an eating disorder.
We'll be back at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Enjoy the next 3 hours. See you then.
on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Welcome to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Very much appreciate you joining us. Lots to talk about today. There always is, isn't there? And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or on your connected device, it's great to have your company. Great also to have the company of a terribly serious-looking Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, who's joining us along with his moustache. And if you aren't watching on our YouTube page, you really are missing out on his Movember tash. It is quite something to behold, and at any point, I think it's going to start burrowing out of a prisoner of war camp.
I was going to say, I'm looking very serious because I had a difficult war. I was shot down over
Very difficult war.
1941.
You should have had it on Monday. You look the part as a veteran.
Yes.
But anyway, either that or it's going to start eating cabbages. Could go either way. Or, as our usual, where
are we going?
You're heading into a new series of Narcos.
There we go.
Yes, or 70s porn. But look at our YouTube page. This is going to boost YouTube watches. Go and have a look at our YouTube page. You decide.
Yeah.
We did a poll on this once some years ago. I feel we may be back into Tash poll territory here.
Okay.
All right. Should we set that up? I think we should. Anyway,
text in your suggestions.
What does he look like? Keep it clean. Anyway, I've got other things I want to ask you about. Shall I get to those?
Why not?
Archbishop of Canterbury, talked a lot about him yesterday, Justin Welby. He did yesterday afternoon resign. I think many of us were saying, you know, was it weeks, days, or was it hours? Quite a few of our guests, reverends who'd actually signed that petition and organised that petition against him yesterday, saying they thought it would be by the end of the day, and it was. A raft of angry criticism about his role in totally failing to act on allegations of child abuse by a Christian summer camp leader and Casey John Smythe. Also going to talk about the NHS, as we often do, because hospital chiefs are going to face the sack and not getting pay rises if they fail to cut NHS waiting times. This is how Health Secretary Wes Streeting announces zero tolerance for failure. Why did no one think of this before? Asking people to do the jobs they're paid to do. Mind-blowing, right? Mind-blowing. It's almost like the NHS might be getting into the programme. Also going to be talking about Donald Trump. And I particularly want to, both of those topics, the NHS and Donald Trump, are things I'd particularly like to hear from you today, because the US President-elect Donald Trump has confirmed that, yes, Elon Musk is going to co-lead a new Department of Government Efficiency. It's alongside Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. Also, we know that a Fox News anchor, Pete Hogsworth, is going to be running the Defence Department, and everyone's decrying that. But actually, he's got quite good credentials for the job. We'll talk about that. Plus, Keir Starmer has been at COP29. He's back today for PMQs, but he has pledged to cut carbon emissions by at least 81% by 2035. That's based on where we were, I think, in the 1980s. He insists Britons can do it without anyone having to change how they live their lives. I'm going to tell you right now that is a blatant and open and clear lie, because one of the key things about hitting the net zero targets, that the Climate Change Committee, supposedly independent, not remotely independent body that advises the government on how to hit net zero, are very, very, very clear that actually a huge amount of what is needed to be done for us to hit these insane, impoverishing targets is for us to not be able to live the lives we want to live, to go on foreign holidays, to use our cars, to eat meat, to basically put the heating on. You know, those luxury things that we enjoy doing in the 21st century. So we're going to talk about all of that. Benedict Spence is going to stay joining with us for all of that as well. Also, a little bit later today, just to let you know, give you a heads up, the suspect in the Southport stabbings is going to be in court at roughly 2 o'clock. So during Ian Collins' show, this is Axel Ruda-Cubana, aged 18, of course, from Banks in Lancashire. He's due to appear at Liverpool Crown Court by video link at 2 o'clock today for a plea and trial preparation hearing. He faces 3 charges of murder, also 10 charges of attempted murder, 1 charge of possession of a knife. Those are all related, obviously, to that attack in Southport on the 29th of July. He's also been additionally charged in the last month with production of a biological toxin, i.e. ricin, but also possessing a file entitled Military Studies in the Jihad Against the Tyrants, the Al-Qaeda Training Manual. So he will be facing the plea and trial preparation hearing. We understand the families of some of the victims in that case are going to be attending the court today. So we'll keep you posted on developments there. Benedict Spence on lighter issues than a forthcoming murder trial. Archbishop of Canterbury resigning. Justin Welby has gone. Everyone says now he's done the right thing, apart from, of course, Rory Stewart, who's wrong about everything, who says he's a good man who quite happily didn't do anything to try and bring a violent, sadistic paedophile to justice. So not that good a man.
No, there's quite a few people who are going down that line online on Twitter, saying he's a good man who's done the right thing and X, Y, Z, and you kind of think, well, you know, it taken in the round, actually, holding on to this information, not revealing it, and sort of sitting on it whilst you were Archbishop for all these years does not necessarily sound like a particularly good thing.
Yeah, but migrants.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but migrants.
And
I think that's what you have to say at this point.
And fascism and, you know, inclusion.
Nasty Tories.
All that sort of thing.
But he's a good man. He just wasn't that bothered about children being beaten sadistically by a paedophile. That didn't bother him so much.
He's at a slight disadvantage in that he seems to be the one sort of leading cleric in any religion who actually has to face some form of accountability. Well, if he'd picked another religion, he'd probably have been fine.
Well, he'd been fine. If he was the Pope, he'd be absolutely fine.
He could have just turned around and gone, well, God hasn't told me to resign, so what are you going to do? Sadly, he does have to answer to people. Of course,
he's the head of the leading cleric in the Church of England. The King is the head of the Church of England. But it may lose his position in the House of Lords. I would certainly expect him to do so, and he has it because of his position.
Well, if Gavin Williamson gets his way, all of the clerics will lose their position.
Well, I would be in favour of that as well. But actually, there are quite a lot of other bishops and others whose names are in the frame. Reverend Stephen Conway, Reverend Dr. Joe Bailey-Wells and Reverend Sue Coleman are all people who are in the firing line from victims and others saying, look, they totally failed to take any action, failed to follow up with police. They knew what was going on and had reasonable grounds for suspicion, did nothing. Is it weird that I'm really shocked by the fact that two of those people are women?
No. It's one of those things where ultimately what you're sort of seeing and what you have seen is something that is very similar to what happened in the Roman Catholic Church, which is, of course, the reputation of the institution is on the line.
Yeah.
And given the scale of what happened in the Roman Catholic Church and the amount that had to be paid out, you can understand why a much smaller church, like the Church of England, would be absolutely terrified.
But the reputation's only on the line because of failure to act and cover up. Look, we know that there are paedophiles in every walk of life. There are police officers, there are judges, there are bin men, there are IT consultants. I mean, it could be anybody, you know what I mean? And so, it's covering it up. It's failing to act when you know that is the crime.
Yeah, that is. And
by the institution.
Yeah, but again, it's one of those things where I don't want this to sound like I'm sort of trying to justify it. It is sometimes just human nature when you discover these things to hope that they'll go away. Wow. And I think when you talk to people who are experts on child sex offences in this country, the consensus is the problem is much larger than people possibly realise, precisely because actually far too many people do turn a blind eye to it. And as you pointed out, we're talking about just about every institution, every arm of government, private, it doesn't matter where it is, actually you will find it somewhere.
NHS, BBC, care homes, social, everybody.
It's absolutely huge. And
but
where possible,
it's right that he's gone.
Oh, of course it's right.
And it may be that other heads topple as well. And for me, this is a message that needs to be sent out. Look, this is what is going to happen if you do not act. And we need to make it clear that, it is unacceptable. And, I didn't do anything bad. No, you need to do something good to act to stop bad things happening.
Especially if you are a religious figure and actually morality is your whole thing.
Especially if you pontificate, for want of a better word,
it's kind of
how moral you are and you don't do anything to protect children. Pontificate
is rather an unfortunate word in this situation, but yes, if your whole shtick is we are the moral arbiters of this country and we can pass judgment on all sorts of things, you kind of have to be quite squeaky clean. And child sex offences, abuse, that's rather a large one.
Yeah.
If it was a little bit of fraud,
by that,
if it was a little bit of, took a fiver out of the communion dish, all right, you can turn a blind eye to that times are tough. But when it's child sex offences, that's a big one.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? There we are. Look, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We had lots of calls on this yesterday. Pretty much everyone, to the man and woman, was saying he has to go, and he has gone. That is a good thing. The message needs to get out there. For any organisation, bearing in mind also he's called on other organisations when things go wrong. Well, you're at the top, you need to take the blame. So, there you go, Justin. And when people say, he's fallen on his sword. No, he didn't think he should resign. He said explicitly he wasn't going to resign. He's only resigned because there's a petition and there's so much pressure. And clearly there would have been a quiet word from the palace and a quiet word from Number 10 saying, mate, you've got to go. He's not even done the honourable thing.
No, he
doesn't even get credit for going, as far as I'm
concerned. He didn't even publish the letter particularly clearly. He sort of printed off an A4 piece of paper, put it on a desk and stood as far... Well, he perhaps didn't do this, but this is what Lambeth Palace did, and they sort of published it so that people couldn't read it online.
Well, now he's not there. They can open Lambeth Palace up to all those migrants that they're so worried about. Let's talk about Wes Streeting. Health Secretary Wes Streeting. He's done a few things, said a few things I'm not happy about. I largely am of the view that he's the sanest person in this government.
Low bar.
Definitely, no, not low bar.
Sorry.
Low bar, to be fair. But I like him personally. He's a good bloke. He's willing to talk tough on the NHS and reform. We had that announcement. Was it like 20-odd billion quid for the NHS in the budget? Everyone went, hold on a minute, what more money for the NHS? But no mention of proper reforms. Well, now we're hearing about the reforms. I think it should probably be the other way round, just going out on a limb here. he's announcing today, and interestingly, he's actually speaking in front of a lot of NHS trust bosses, so, you know, into the lion's den, basically saying if you're a hospital chief and you don't cut waiting times, you don't get the job done, you don't do well in performance league tables, you are going to not only not get your pay rise, not get your bonuses and things, you're going to be sacked from your job and not allowed to sort of take a payoff and then go work for the next hospital trust, because that's what they've been doing in musical chairs they play. I mean, it's extraordinary to see an awful lot of, people from, the NHS Confederation, others going, oh, well, this is terrible, because if we have league tables and things, then this will encourage us to sort of go towards the league tables, and people shouldn't be sacked for, what if their finances are difficult? You think, oh, my God, you're paid six-figure salaries. Yeah. We expect you to do the job. So 2 hospitals with the same demographics, with the same budget, some of them are able to have shorter waiting lists by a long way than others. That tells you it's about failure of management or a lot of the time. If you're not good at your job running the NHS, not only is it economically sane for you to be sacked, it is the moral thing for you to go, because you are costing people's lives. If I do my job badly, I get sacked. If I do my job badly and I libel someone, that costs me and the company a lot of money. Okay, but no one's going to die as a result. If you do a job where if you're rubbish at your job, people die, you should want to go if you're no good.
It's a good thing that nobody relies on me for my job to live or die.
What is your job,
I just sort of bumble along in here, just sort of, sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm bad. But much like an NHS manager, I stay hung on like a barnacle. You'll never get rid of me. I'm here forever.
We'll
honestly,
see about that.
Well, this is the thing, though, isn't it? When it comes to Wes Streeting, the Labour Party, they are able, politically, in a way, to promise NHS reforms in a way that the Tories are not, because there is a lot of opposition coming from NHS figures and a few commentators, but you can imagine it would be 10 times worth if it was a Tory saying, we're going to sack people who don't do their jobs. Everybody would be up in arms, they'd be asking for money, all of these campaigns. And again, we're seeing something similar right now in the US, we'll get onto this, which is the idea of government efficiency and performance. When you say, we're going to sack people who don't do their jobs, the machine grinds it, gets into gear, and people get angry, because it's their livelihood, it's their way of life.
Shouldn't they want to do their jobs well anyway?
But they just want to get paid. That's what actually.
That's the worry, isn't it?
It may surprise a lot of people. Actually, a lot of people are drawn to high-paid jobs because they're high-paid, not because of some sort of moral. A lot of doctors do not, in fact, think what I want to do is save lives. They think this is a well-paid and secure job.
I think that makes more sense in America than I think actually for the skill level you need and the training you need and sort of A-level grades you have to get into medical school. I think you're pretty crazy to go into medicine as your way of making money. There are plenty of ways.
Yes, but actually, in times gone past, it was still
a high respect job.
Also, it's one of the few jobs that you can take and flee the country with, actually.
As we now know.
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear from you on this. Also, on other subject we'll get to in just a moment, but Health Secretary Wes Streeting, he says NHS chiefs will be sacked if they don't cut hospital waiting times. What is your reaction? I wonder what it's going to be. I'd love to hear from you. Your experience in the NHS in terms of waiting times for operations and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can message the word talk to 87222. You can also get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs 1 standard network rate message. Love to hear your thoughts on that. I also want to hear your thoughts on my next topic, which is Donald Trump appointing, among others, to his new cabinet, Elon Musk, to lead a new US Department of Government Efficiency. What's your reaction to that? Again, the same number, 0344 499 1000. I'd love to hear your thoughts, because Benedict Spence, please, 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 can we have Elon Musk, once he's sorted out America, can you sort out us now? Now, they have an even bigger problem. We've got like 400 federal agencies. They spend, literally the US government spends trillions and trillions of dollars. There is huge amounts of waste. They've got a big issue in the Senate and the Congress with this pork barrel bills, where basically, well, I'll agree to X if you agree to a load of extra money for my this county in my constituency on something completely different. The spending by the American government is absurd. It's a huge, very rich economy. However, it is trillions in debt. It is an economic... I mean, it's doing economically much better than we're doing in most European countries, but it's still kind of built on a house of cards to a certain extent. what do you make of the appointment of Elon Musk to go in, sort it out, given what he did with Twitter?
Yeah.
Given how he operates with Tesla and with SpaceX.
The Boring Company.
Yes.
I mean, you said that they have over 400 federal agencies. It's even worse than that. They technically don't know how many they have because there are several that are they part of other organisations? Yeah. Is this one still being operated properly? Has it been outsourced? That is how vast the US federal government. They cannot actually give you an exact number.
That tells you everything.
Elon Musk, whatever you may think of his politics or his character, he is somebody who gets things done. So you can entirely understand, therefore, why the Democrats are terrified of this man being parachuted into government. And it's interesting, there was a social scientist called Samo Berger who actually advocated for what Elon Musk did at Twitter, which is what you should do with the federal government, which is basically you should turn around and say to people, right, what is your job? What did you get done this week? And let everybody know, look, by this deadline, we're going to be letting X amount of you go. And those of you who maintain will get some of the pay of those people. So you're incentivized to work. And you keep on doing that. Every couple of months you have a review and you say, so what did you achieve in this period of time?
Yeah. What did you actually... I don't care what your job title is.
Yeah.
What did you actually do?
Yeah, and this is what he does. And some people say that it's very terrifying and all this sort of thing, to which the response is yes, and look how well it's doing. I mean, he's able to get rockets up in the air.
Same as the NHS. It's like paying people to do the job they actually do.
Yeah.
I think there are huge ways of particularly, I mean, I think of the private sector as well.
Yeah.
Every private sector I've worked in, there are at least, I've always said, if I was a boss of a company, I would go in and I would say, right, just on this floor, write a list of the 10 people we should definitely never let go because they get stuff done.
Yeah.
And go write a list on the other side of 10 people who, frankly, if they left, no one would even notice.
Yeah.
And I reckon 8 or 9 of those names would be the same on every single side, from every single person. Everyone knows the people who do Paul, and everyone knows the people who, that's the person to get things done.
Yeah, and this is what he's going to... There is an interesting question, though, that needs to be answered, which is that is he going to stay actively involved in the running of things like Twitter or SpaceX? Because then it would be a conflict of interest.
Well, no, but that's the thing. His role is going to be outside federal government, technically, so he doesn't need to have approval and on a technicality, and he still gets these massive contracts.
They are going to have that massively sort of nailed to the wall, because otherwise, this is how Democrats operate through lawfare. They will be dragged through the courts on this.
Yeah.
The other thing, I don't know if you noticed...
Yeah, but so all the courts are run by Conservatives now.
Have you noticed the first letters of the department that he's running?
Doge.
It's literally...
Apparently it's a meme. It's a
cryptocurrency.
I mean, that's gone up in value.
It is, exactly. That every time Elon Musk mentions Doge, it massively spikes. And so even though this is a very important role in a government job, the most powerful government on earth, he's still doing practical jokes. That was put out by the president.
Can we also talk about another appointment? This is lots of derision. The new head of the Defence Department, new Defence Secretary, is going to be a Fox News anchor called Peter Hegsworth. Now, it's been much derided, and I pointed out today, is it any madder to appoint a Fox News anchor to a job like that than appoint a vice president based on the fact that she's black and a woman? I mean, it seems to me...
Or Donald Trump as president.
But what's interesting, of course, now, again, bearing in mind, our defence secretaries often had no defence background, never been in government, so they've got no more background on that. But he actually went to Princeton and Yale, two of the top universities in the world. He then worked on Wall Street. He had 20 years of military service, including in Iran and Afghanistan. He's a decorated war hero.
In Iran, sorry.
Iraq, sorry. Correct. 3 points. Afghanistan and Iraq. And also, after he left military, he set up an organisation helping veterans. Seems to me that saying he's a Fox News anchor rather undermines, actually, an entire career of public service. Yeah. A very, very, very sharp brain. Yeah. I'm thinking this guy might be pretty good.
But you're going to see that. You're going to see that with almost every appointment to the Trump administration, is that Democrats and mouthpieces that are adjacent to that party are going to go in two-footed on them because they've lost, and they've lost badly, and all they can do now is complain. He controls all 4 branches of the government, and he's won a majority. This is unprecedented territory for many people in the US media ecosystem who lean Democrat. They've never seen anything. Even W. Bush didn't have this.
No, exactly. But also, most likely, now looks the Secretary of State is going to be, as he called him, Little Marco, Marco Rubio, very pro-Israel. Very, I mean, and the new US ambassador to Israel as well, and the new US ambassador to the UN as well. Very, very much no nonsense, no, we're not even looking at 2-state solution at this point. This is just, it's Israel. And you know what? I'm happy with that. I really am.
Yeah.
Look, there's so much more to talk about. I want to hear your thoughts on all of this, not just Donald Trump's appointments, but particularly Elon Musk. Do we want Elon Musk in? Who would you want to be appointed here? I mean, I'd take Elon Musk to actually deal with government efficiency. And frankly, let's be honest, probably get rid of about 50% of our bureaucracy. Would that not improve the country? I mean, if those people are so great, I'm sure they'll be able to get other jobs, won't they? Because they're so good at what they do. I'd love you to get in touch on that. 0344 499 1000. I also love you to get in touch about the Health Secretary was tweeting. Well, it's just a very similar story, really, saying the NHS chiefs will be sacked if they don't cut hospital waiting times. Do you agree that they should? What's your experience been in the NHS? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do get in touch. This is Talk, the home of common sense.
Now he's saying it will be it's based on modelling, and it will be £300 that you save in 6 years' time. I mean, it's a nonsense, isn't it?
These are matters of opinion, and I heard very clearly what Ed Miliband just said just there. It could save up to £300 in 2030.
Right.
And when Susanna Reid asked him how much it's going to go up in the meantime, he didn't have an answer.
No.
And that,
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So at the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, and with Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, or is he? He's arrived today with his Movember tash, and it's really growing quite a thing. We did this, about 6-7 years ago, I think. We did a poll on what he looked like. I've just put the poll out on X, Twitter, I always say this, whatever we're calling it this week. It's still Twitter to me, I'm sorry. And I'd love you to take part in the poll. The question is a picture of Benedict Spence. Then it asks, who does Benedict Spence look like? Your options are a World War II prisoner of war, an extra in Narcos, a 1970s porn star, other, please specify. Can't wait to read those. Keep them clean. Keep them clean so I can read them out. But if you're not looking at us, have a look at on YouTube. Have a look at our YouTube page, or you can watch on your connected device. I don't understand these things.
I've looked at this picture. I look like the mayor of every Italian town ever.
That's your reply.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have I just been caught up in a corruption scandal? Hey, who knows?
It's all deteriorated, people. There is so much to talk about. I want to hear from you. Health Secretary Wes Streeting says that NHS chiefs will be sacked if they don't cut hospital waiting times. What's your reaction to that? Being expected to do the job you're paid to do, 6-figure salary often. I don't think that's unreasonable. Your calls, please, 0344 499 1000. Let me get to some of your texts and tweets on this. Paul says, I wonder if the NHS is still top-heavy with little clear plans to resolve waiting times, with the right hand not knowing what the left is doing. Mate, I don't think the right hand knows what the right is doing. Dan says, about time someone said this is their job. Doubt he'll follow through, though. That's the thing. Talk's a good game. Are they actually going to be willing to actually sack people who don't live up to expectations? Al says, NHS management are renowned for dragging their heels simply to make out that they need yet more funding. And so it goes on. The fact that the NHS Confederation, which represents NHS trust bosses, effectively, the fact that they've already gone, oh, well, this is really unfair and this won't work and this is going to make people feel anxious about their jobs. Yes. You're on a 6-figure salary and your job is to keep people alive, and if you fail, people die. Yeah. Yes, you should be anxious about keeping your job. I mean, welcome to the private sector, folks. That's how people live every day.
I'm curious to know how they're going to square this, seeing as that Angela Rayner, one of her big things is that she's going to make it harder for people to sack people in this country. So you're going to have actual cabinet meeting battles between these two.
Do you want to get rid of Jane?
Wes Streeting going that all of these hospitals are failing. Angela Rayner going, and I will defend their right to keep failing for as long as I'm in government.
It was interesting because Health Secretary is giving a speech right now in front of NHS bosses, and he's saying the NHS is broken but not beaten. I mean, I kind of think that, you just have to look at survival rates from pretty much every disease in the world, and every other Western nation that doesn't have an NHS system, a monolithic bureaucracy like ours, is doing better. Your chances of surviving are higher in Eastern Europe than they are even in Britain. I think, reality check. Yeah. Chris says, he said they would be sacked if they persistently failed. So basically, it's empty words. They'll measure for a year, then 2 years of failure. They'll put chief executives on notice. Then Labour will be voted out before anything happens. Well, one would hope whoever gets in would also follow through on that. But yeah, they're not expected to actually deliver, are they? Ray says, won't this lead to managers taking shortcuts to save their jobs, leading to increased risk to patients? Glad the adults are in the room now. And this is the thing, we're often told, it's like the league tables for schools, and they're saying also league tables for the NHS. If you have league tables, well then, then the bosses, the schools or the health service, their actions will be skewed towards what's in the league table. It's like, not if you're a good boss. Yeah. If you're a good boss, you'll want to do your job properly.
Yeah, and actually if the government is setting this up properly and they're actually going to monitor hospitals properly, they'll take things into account. For example, if an NHS manager turns around and goes, well, look, our performance hasn't improved in the last 2 years, but that's because we've taken time to put this, this and this in place, which we couldn't do any faster because of X, Y, Z regulation, at which point the government might, if it was sensible, turn around and go, OK, so this is a long-term strategy, rather than just go, nope, no improvement, you're fired.
Exactly.
You'd hope that the government would do that.
You would hope.
Who knows,
You
frankly.
would hope. Bill says waiting times won't go down when there are hundreds of economic migrants coming each week. It's actually thousands every week, frankly. Legal people.
Yeah, buddy, you've got it
given
all wrong.
Free NHS services, and that's the thing. I mean, people do get entitled to it. Ben says, blame game again. How can you cut waiting times when your government has an open border policy that keeps adding thousands to a crippling system? All fair points. Let's get to your messages also coming in about Donald Trump appointing Elon Musk to lead a new US Department of Government Efficiency. I'm asking what your reaction is. I mean, surely your reaction is, can we have him here, please? I'd love to know who would be the appointee here. to deal with that here? Who would be... I think years gone by, people have gone, oh, someone like Richard Branson or someone like that. Digby Jones, pretty sensible fellow. He was appointed to government for a while. Greg says, I'd like to see a similar position created here. There you go. Someone with the experience and calibre of Elon Musk, who's unafraid to take on the institutions and make changes where required. Jeremy says, fantastic. Twitter improved massively after he sacked 85% of the staff. And it really was that. There were that many people working from home doing absolutely nothing, and he got rid of them all. And funnily enough, no difference really in terms of anything for most of us users. Most governments, he says, are totally bloated. If this was done in the UK, the cash saved could go to building up the defence needs. We have 2 weeks of ammunition and not enough tanks, planes or people. Fair point. Rachel says Musk is an efficient person. Just look at all the businesses he's run. And Daniel says, interesting idea, but is he up for the job? He's an innovator, not an engineer. No, but he's also a guy who runs very, very successful multi-billion-pound business. All of his businesses have gone from zero to billions. I'm thinking the guy might know what he's doing.
There's this desperate attempt by so many people who just want to paint him as some sort of idiot. And you just think there's no evidence. Just
you know the woman running the NHS, I had a picture on, you know she can't perform surgery. She's probably not even allowed to give an injection. I mean, you don't have to be the expert in that thing to be able to manage it.
Yeah, they say, oh, he's not the engineer that does this, that and the other. I mean, he did teach himself rocket science in pretty short order. He's not an idiot. He does know how these things work.
It's not brain surgery.
Yeah, exactly. But again, people sort of assuming, OK, so because he doesn't physically build the rocket, that means it's not his rocket. Come on, don't be thick.
We are basically today talking about it's not rocket science, it's not brain surgery in terms of managing the government and managing public services like the NHS. Get in touch. 0344 499 1000 is the number to have your say. Up next, we are going to be talking to one of the many, it would appear, Church of England priests. Very happy to see the back of Justin Welby. We'll talk about that and also COP29 in the next half hour. This is Talk.
The UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 10:36 is the time. I forgot to mention to you a bit earlier that actually we're going to be talking to Alison Pearson, the fantastic Telegraph columnist and a very good friend of mine, very strong campaigner, anti-lockdown, people who are taking women's rights, you name it. She's sound on everything. And Alison Pearson received a visit from police on Sunday morning over a tweet that she wrote that they claim was stoking up racial hatred. A year ago, I kid you not, a year ago, this sort of Kafkaesque, Orwellian visit via the police about a non-crime hate incident that the police say could actually be a crime, is really quite terrifying, and it absolutely is stultifying in terms of people's ability to deliver free speech. But didn't work out so well for her local police force, because it's on the front page of the Telegraph, big article by Alison Pearson, and she's going to be on the show here at midday. You do not want to miss that. Right now, let's turn our attention back to Justin Welby. Talked about him on the show an awful lot, calls for him to resign over what he quite clearly, according to the Making report, did know, reasonably could assume to know about the concerns about a barrister involved in the church who ran Christian summer camps and the horrific physical and sexual and psychological abuse that he inflicted on many teenage boys. Now, the Archbishop of Canterbury had said he wasn't going to resign, and then yesterday afternoon he fell on his sword. Justin Welby is out. But let's talk about this with Rev Peter Old. He's a priest with the Church of England and joins us. Good morning to you, Peter.
Morning, Julia. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Now, I know you are one of those who were calling for him to go. The sad thing is with Justin Welby, because he said he wouldn't go, and it was only when all the pressure was mounting and no doubt a little quiet call from the palace and a quiet nudge from Downing Street that he actually did fall on his sword. He doesn't even get to go with good grace as a man who's done the right thing, does he?
I mean, he's done the right thing eventually.
But not for the right reasons.
He's done the right thing eventually, but I think you're right. There's a sense of, I think almost from the start of the weekend, there was a sense of inevitability about where this was going to end up. You know, it's the same as, isn't it, in Westminster when a minister does something wrong and you know where it's going to end up.
Yeah, and the Prime Minister's spokesman says he has our full confidence.
Yeah, and if you even need to say that you have some, that somebody has your full confidence, it's game over.
Yeah, the fact that you even need to say it. I mean, he's at the top of the organisation. It was very clear in this Making review, looking at the evidence about this man, John Smythe, an evangelical Christian, basically saying he could have been exposed 4 years earlier and before his death in Cape Town a few years back if the Archbishop had contacted the authorities. Just an abject failure to take responsibility personally, but also institutional responsibility. And this is the issue, isn't it? And some of the guests we spoke to yesterday, including those who'd actually started the petition against him, which I think had reached, certainly by my show, 10,500 signatures, and certainly had grown since then, was that, this is ultimately, if you're talking about sex abuse from someone at a lower grade, higher grade, ultimately, the higher up it goes, the more likely it is the person you'd have to report it to would be the Archbishop. So if there was a bishop that was sexually abusing, you'd have to report it to an Archbishop. And if the man at the top doesn't take it seriously enough that he would actually try and take action to stop it, then that means you've no longer got safeguarding in your institution. Was it, as you say, inevitable that he had to go?
Yeah, I mean, there were personal failings of Justin Welby along the way. I think he could have done more to contact South Africa, and the attitude was almost between him and other senior clergy was, well, we've tried, we've spoken to them, we haven't got anything back. Hey ho!
Yeah.
Right?
Never mind when it was Zimbabwe as well. Never mind that teenage boy found dead in a pool in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I think there were also other fundamental failings, right? So, for example, he said in 2013 he wants to meet the victims. 4 years later, still hadn't met them, had to be shamed by a victim's representative from Channel 4 News. But I think one of the things that really did it for him was this, right? As priests, we get safeguarding rightly rammed down our throats, right? You do all the things and so on. I've got a training session tomorrow morning to do, right? So we get it rammed down our throats. We get threatened with disciplinary action if we don't do it right. And what the grounds experience is that when it comes to the ordinary, worker priests in the pews, if we do something wrong, we get absolutely slapped down.
Yeah.
If the hierarchy does something wrong, it's lessons learned.
Yeah.
And I think what happened this time was lessons learned wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And that leads me on, I think, to think what's going to happen next, because this isn't over, right? If you go and read the Making report, there are a number of individuals who are called out for really...
Well, let me mention this. Is the Reverend Stephen Conway, the Bishop of Lincoln, they're also facing calls because one of the victims of Smythe informed Bishop Conway's then diocese of allegations against Smythe in 2013, and the review found that he was in a powerful position to ensure a police referral was made and failed to do so. Also, Reverend Dr. Joe Bailey Wells, the Bishop for Episcopal Ministry at the Anglican Communion Office in London, was working for the Archbishop of Canterbury as his personal chaplain at Lambeth Palace back in 2013, failed to follow up on on claims that police were looking into it. And the Reverend Sue Coleman, the wife of Sir Jamie Coleman, he apparently, I don't know if this is relevant, the heir to the Coleman mustard empire. She's among those facing pressure. She had a role as an associate minister at St Leonard's Church, and it was found that she and her husband continued to provide financial support to the paedophile abuser while he was in Zimbabwe, despite it is, they say, the Making report, very likely that they knew that there had been allegations of abuse. It is extraordinary. And the thing that particularly surprises me, and I don't know whether it's wrong for me to think that, is that two of these three people are women.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into, at the moment, I don't want to get into like a list to create a witch hunt. And one of the reasons is because, yesterday what I was noticing was on social media, people were accusing Welby of all kinds of things that he hadn't done. And so let's not witch hunt. However, if you go and look at the Making report, if you read it, I mean, it is harrowing, but you see people who have made mistakes 40 years ago. You see people who have made mistakes back in, a decade ago, or just, previously in the Ewan Trust, in the Titus Trust, in the Diocese of Ely at the times, in other places, right? And I think sometimes people were well-intentioned, but they still the consequences of their actions led to more abuse.
But here's the thing: we're perhaps more willing to excuse things that happened way back when, but certainly by 2013, everyone was aware that covering up. We knew what had been happening in the Catholic Church around the world, what happened in Ireland, what happened in Britain, what happened in the Church of England in Britain. This stuff was we were soon to find out about the Jimmy Saviles and all. I mean, in fact, I think we already did. I mean, come on. People already knew what the dangers of not acting sooner were about.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what I'm saying. So I think people need to reflect, and they will know who they are. They need to reflect humbly as to whether decisions that they made, even with the best of intentions, led to Smythe being able to abuse. And if they did, they need to withdraw from public ministry. And they need to do that because we are now in a time where we need to put aside politics, internal church spats, and just let light come into this. The real danger here, and it's already happening, look at the interview that the Bishop of Dover did last night on Channel 4. That was deeply political, attacking a broad section of the church and basically saying, it's your basic theology of believing Jesus died for sins that led to this. Deeply destructive, very offensive. Who does she mean? Does she mean me? Does she mean that I'm basically a facilitator for Smythe's abuse? Because actually that abuse isn't happening in our church, because actually we take the Bible seriously. And so when Jesus said it's better to have a millstone around your neck than let abuse happen to these two
I'd like to say, as an atheist, you don't have to have any particular religious belief to know that abusing children is wrong.
Abuse is about power and wanting to fulfill one's own desires, and that can be a Christian, a Muslim, an atheist, whatever.
Exactly.
It's not about theology. It's about the self.
Exactly.
That first.
So you're concerned that the church is going to tear itself apart about this, but again, and I would say a lot of that is down to Justin Welby's failure to act sooner. Really good to talk to you. I hope you'll come on the show again, Reverend Peter Old. He's a Church of England priest. Thank you for that. Benedict Spence, look, I ain't got any skin in this game. I'm not. I'm an atheist. But I mean, I've got to be honest with you. Would I leave my child alone with anyone working in any church? I've got to be honest with you. When she was a kid, Not a chance, mate. Not a chance. And I'm going to cast no aspersions on any individuals. I'm just playing the odds here.
Yeah.
I don't think this is an institution that I can trust. And this is it. Justin Welby has really, breached that trust that the church should have.
Absolutely. And I think, given that, in recent years it has become something people are a lot more conscious of, that, you can't have the same sort of trust in authority figures as you once did. I think there was even more impetus on him, actually, to be clear and transparent and, perhaps to fall on his sword earlier and say, look, I made a mistake. Maybe, not wait until he was pushed, because that's how you'll end up regaining trust. And I do think it's very important that we do try to regain trust, because you simply can't go through life going, society can't be trusted, none of these institutions can be, and that's fine.
Yeah. But here's the thing, again, it's, it's like the police forces, you're booting out lots of people because, of wrongdoing. We trust institutions more if you highlight and are public about the people who are wrong-uns, because every organisation has wrong-uns, OK? I worked in a newspaper where I worked in 2 different newspapers where people have gone to prison because of their paedophile offences, OK? The key thing is to be open and honest about it and not try and cover it up. An institution that's never had any problems is an institution that is covering it up, and that's the key thing. 10:47 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Want to get to your messages, lots more messages coming in about NHS West Streeting and indeed the appointment of Elon Musk to promote government efficiency in America. Who should we appoint here? That's what I'd like to know. Also, lots of your messages coming in on that, a poll on what it is that Benedict Spence looks like right now. Do take a look at my X feed for that. And up next, we are going to be talking about COP29 summit. Keir Starmer's been and gone on a jet. I know, it's amazing, isn't it? The rules are always different. But why he is, let's face it, telling a barefaced lie when he says we can achieve his net zero targets without us having to change our lifestyles. That's not true, but he keeps saying it. This is Talk, the home of common sense.
Now he's saying it will be it's based on modelling, and it will be £300 that you save in 6 years' time. I mean, it's a nonsense, isn't it?
These are matters of opinion, and I heard very clearly what Ed Miliband just said just there. It could save up to £300 in 2030. And when Susanna Reid asked him how much it's going to go up in the meantime, he didn't have an answer.
No.
And that,
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. This is Talk, the home of common sense. 10:52 is the time. Benedict Spence is still with me. You may think he looks like an extra from Narcos, but no, he's not. He's a 70s porn star. No, he's not. He's a World War II prisoner of war. Now, you must answer the poll.
Always the same pornographic genre.
It's the only kind where they've got the tashes, isn't it? The Movember is with us with a vengeance, folks. There's a poll out on my X feed. Have a look. Please vote accordingly. I love your... some people are specifying other. Some great options there. We'll get to those later in the show. Right now. Keep you warm on a cold winter's day when we're not allowed to put our heating on or fly abroad to somewhere warm because of net zero targets.
Exactly.
Do you see what I did there? Let's talk about COP29. Someone's got to. Rupert Darwell is the author of Green Tyranny and joins us. Good morning to you, Rupert.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. Well, we had Keir Starmer doing a sort of quick fly in, quick fly out, and then realising, it turns out I'm the only world leader here because everyone else has stayed away because, frankly, no one cares about the mad net zero targets anymore, apart from mad politicians in our country. And yes, I include the Tories in that. But Keir Starmer has made an extra pledge to cut UK carbon emissions. It's going to be by 81% instead of 78% by 2035. This is compared to our levels in the 1990s. Now, we're probably going to achieve that because we're basically closing down industry, closing down steel and coal and things. So we'll probably get to it by
Julia,
accident, won't we?
also closing down farming. This is really important. Farming is one of the biggest emitters of greenhouse gases, not just carbon dioxide, but nitrous oxide and so forth. So what we're seeing with the plans on inheritance tax is all part of part of it.
Close down the farms, don't eat anything, we'll all die, and there'll be zero carbon emissions, and the world will be a wonderful place for humanity. Oh, there's a catch there, isn't there? Now, what's I find fascinating is the press conference, and I'm delighted that actually someone asked these questions at long last, because it's only taken them 10 sodding years to get us to start asking the right questions, is what sort of lifestyle changes would be required from the British people for us to achieve more of his net zero targets, and including, of course, the 2030 insane clean electricity target under Ed Miliband's plans, and of course 2050 itself. And he was saying there wouldn't be a requirement for any sort of changes in lifestyle. Now, that's completely untrue, isn't it? Because there's a document published, 4 years ago now by the Climate Change Committee, the supposed experts on this, the supposed independent advisors to the government, and they made it very clear that a huge amount of the so-called, net zero achievements would have to be carried out by you and me and everyone watching and listening, changing our lives. What sort of thing would that involve?
Yeah, there's a whole column called lifestyle changes, and a lot of it's about diet. So not eating meat, or not eating dairy, to switching to a plant-based diet, driving more slowly, can't fly anywhere. So there's a whole raft of them, and of course the biggest chunk is everyone feeling a lot poorer, and that is where the Prime Minister is utterly deluded.
Well, I mean, yeah, we know, say something we don't know. But this is the thing, when he says it's not needed, and when, Ed Miliband pushes forward these targets for 2030, this is the thing I don't get. If they'd read any of the documents, even this so-called independent report from NESO, this is National Energy, I think, Security System, whatever it is, it's who's the sole shareholder, by the way, is Ed Miliband, the Secretary of State. But he claims it's an independent report. He claims that it said, we're going to be able to achieve this and energy is going to be cheaper. It doesn't even say that. It doesn't actually say they're going to be able to achieve it, and it doesn't say that energy is going to be cheaper. It says it's going to be more expensive. So even his own reports, written by the organisation of which he's the sole shareholder, don't agree with him.
Yeah, I think also when you look at that detail of the report, not only, as you say, does it suggest that energy would be more expensive, but the whole thing, the idea that rushing through to a decarbonised grid by 2030, it's simply unaffordable and unachievable, as we've seen with the wind drought. You cannot do without natural gas power stations.
I mean, the other thing is, this stuff is so basic. Do you think that people like Ed Miliband, like Keir Starmer, do you think they actually believe this stuff, that they've got that sort of Greta, sort of, you know, just sort of obsessive, you know, religious zealotry about it? Or do you think that they kind of know they're not going to do it, but they kind of said it and they can't backtrack now? When they've actually looked at the detail, they're like, well, hopefully we won't be in power when it actually comes to it. What do you think? Because it's not possible to know anything about this and to believe this is possible. It's literally not possible to know the facts and believe that what they want to achieve, the way they want to achieve it, is possible. So which is it? Are they lying to us, lying to themselves? Do they believe it? What is it?
I think you have to distinguish between Keir Starmer and Miliband. I think Keir Starmer is a human rights lawyer and he has no understanding of economics whatsoever.
Yep.
So he basically, he regurgitates what he's told. Ed Miliband I put in a different category because he was Energy Secretary when the 2008 Climate Change Act was going through Parliament. And he signed an impact assessment statement which clearly says, he signed off, you can see his signature at the bottom of the page, which says that if the world does not decarbonise, does not follow Britain, Britain will bear all the costs, get all the costs and none of the benefits, and it's a bad deal for Britain. So he's up to his neck in telling untruths. He knows the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. But that also, people said, well, you know, he's the Energy Secretary. Well, he's the Energy Security and Net Zero Secretary. And again, I've always said those two jobs are mutually exclusive. He's got the same qualification I've got from university. So as far as I can tell, I seem to understand the science better than he does.
Yeah, I think he's now in the deceiving people, he deceives himself, and he does these extraordinary sort of TikTok-style videos going on about net zero and stuff. And it's just, I mean, it comes across as completely deluded. I think the thing that's changed, you talked about the first time in 10 years, a journalist asking what has changed is Trump's election, because he's put it on the agenda and it cannot, this is going to be talked about. And you've seen the Conservatives in opposition start being honest that there are trade-offs. So I think the whole discourse on this is really going to change big time.
Oh God, I really, really hope so. Rupert Darwell, thank you for being a fantastic campaigner on this, author of Green Tyranny. And Benedict Spence, just really briefly, I mean, look, finally people are asking the right questions. Are we going to get the right answers?
Finally, but we are not, and it's going to take... The fact of the matter is this government is now installed for the next 5 years, and they are going to run us even further into the ground as a result of this. Really the United States goes through an economic renaissance, as it fracks, as it drills, we are going to be stuck in the doldrums. And I just can't wait to endure another 5 years of this.
It is going to be so bad. They are just so up to their eyeballs in these lies, aren't they? It is propaganda. It is lies. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Don't forget your calls on the NHS, but also Elon Musk in charge of efficiency. Who should we have here? This is Talk.
your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm wishing the morning away. Good morning. I swear I'm going to stop. Hello. That's easy. I can't get it wrong then. Hello. Welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, doesn't know what time of day it is. Benedict Spence, who doesn't know what decade it is because he's either in the 1970s Bond film or 1940s in a prisoner of war camp. I got it in. Benedict Spence, if you're not watching us on YouTube, you are so missing out because he is sporting his, as he does every year, his Movember moustache. And it's quite a fine thing this year. It's great. I mean, it's only, what is it? What's the date? It's the 13th. I mean, good God, what's it going to look like by the 30th?
One of the only things that I can sort of claim sort of alpha maledom over. Most things not, but this, I just have to sort of wink at myself in the mirror and it grows. It's fantastic.
Very impressed. But anyway, I do have a poll out.
But you also hate moustaches, so it's sort of
I don't hate moustaches. I'm just...
What is it? How do you feel?
Is it the moustache or is it Benedict? I don't know. But anyway, if you want to take part in a poll, we did this some years back, but it's not really updated. Does he look like 70s porn star, an extra from Narcos?
I still look like I'm from the 1930s, and I can do the voice.
Or he's always trying to escape from a prisoner of war camp. Yes. But up to you. Or other... Please specify. Do get in touch with us. Love to hear your thoughts on all of that. In the meantime, we are talking about rather more important things. Whether you are listening on DAB Plus radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube so you can see the tat, or on your connected device. It's great to have your company and the company of whatever that is on his top lip. Coming up in this hour, we have been talking about the Archbishop of Canterbury. Justin will be resigning. A lot of criticism here, but basically not acting soon enough, and then not falling on his sword and showing some basic decency of character when it emerged that he really should have spoken up about child abuse by a Christian summer camp leader, John Smythe. Also, crucially, these things I wanted to ask you about today. The US President-elect Donald Trump has confirmed that Elon Musk will co-lead a new Department of Government Efficiency. I want to hear from you. Who should we get to lead our Department of Government Efficiency? Roughly what percentage do you think we need to sack? Because he said things like it's got 400 federal agencies, may even be more in the US. He says 99 is enough. He wants to get rid of 3/4 of government federal agencies in the United States. Wouldn't it be great to get rid of a lot of our quangos? Hell of a lot of people on a hell of a lot of money. Hell of a lot of diversity chiefs and net zero chiefs on your and my taxes paying their wages who don't actually contribute anything of any worthwhile. So I'd love to hear what you make of that. Also love to hear what you make of what Wes Streeting has had to say, as hospital chiefs are going to face the sack, we are told. Will that actually happen? But they'll face the sack if they fail to cut waiting times at hospitals. Wes Streeting says that they want zero tolerance for failure, because we've had a heck of a lot of tolerance for failure in recent years. This is Talk. Welcome to the home of common sense. The number to call for either of those stories or anything else you want to talk about on the Wes Streeting saying NHS chiefs should be sacked, or Elon Musk appointed as the head of a new US Department of Government Efficiency. The number is 0344 499 1000. I promise we will get your calls in this half hour. You can text on 87222. You can message me on X @Talk. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Well, we talked a lot about the Archbishop of Canterbury in the last hour. I want to move on and let's talk more about Elon Musk's appointments, because I think these are fascinating, Benedict. Elon Musk is going to basically share this job with the co-leader of the new Department of Government Efficiency, the former Republican presidential candidate, top leading businessman, Vivek Ramaswamy, who's had some interesting ideas over the years. They're going to be outside of sort of the federal government, so they don't have to declare their interests, give up their business interests, and they don't have to go through congressional approval and all of those things. Basically, they can just stand outside government. This is Donald Trump this is him draining the swamp, isn't he? Cutting through the blob?
Yeah, I think he has regrets about his first term, where actually he didn't achieve very much domestically. Certainly not. He
wasn't prepared for government. He didn't think he'd win.
He wasn't. He didn't know what was going to happen, and ultimately it turned into a bit of a vanity project. Whereas this time around, I think he's a little... This may sound odd. I think he's a little more humble in terms of actually what his record is, and he understands that if he is going to have a legacy, and also if the party is going to win the next presidential election, there needs to be tangible improvements. And also, he's inheriting a real mess of a situation, which can be very bad, as Joe Biden found out, but also is a fantastic opportunity to turn the page on a lot of the nonsense that's gone before, and actually that he really could be viewed as a transformational president if he gets these appointments right.
This is the thing. Again, everyone knows my views here. I was not a fan of this guy. 2016, 2010, wouldn't have voted for him. This time around, I said before the election, I thought he was probably going to win, and I thought that, and I said that if I was an American voter, I would have voted for him, just simply because I think that the Democrats are stark staring insane now.
Yeah.
And I think that, so many things that are wrong in our country are even worse in America, whether it's the trans stuff, whether it's that net zero madness, the huge money that goes into that, the bloated bureaucracy, the huge amount of debt, and just huge amount of bureaucracy that is just deeply, deeply corrupt and money sort of grabbing and holds back people from living their lives, doing stuff that would not harm other people. Government shouldn't get involved if it doesn't harm other people.
It's ironic that everybody was so keen to shout he's a fascist about Donald Trump, because if he is a fascist, well, the Democrats for the last few years, they've gone full Soviet Union. So we do really have both sides.
And who ended up killing the most people? The communists.
In terms of the mind-bendingness of their ideas, actually, a lot of what the Democrats have tried to push is insane. And that is why they lost. That's why they lost the popular vote. It's why they are down with minorities and all sorts of things. That is ultimately what it is down to. But it's fascinating, actually, that he now finds himself with all of these branches of government to get things done, because this is very unusual. The last time I think that anybody was in this sort of position was Barack Obama, and to be fair, he didn't actually get very much done. So I think what you're going to see is a real different tack from the previous Donald Trump administration. This is going to be less about the Donald Trump show. There's still going to be a lot of that. His ego requires a lot of this. But Henry Kissinger said about Donald Trump after he won the first election, whether he knows it or not, he's somebody at the crux of a moment in American history, and he may be the one to change an awful lot of things.
Absolutely. He could be he really could be a great president. I mean, the only thing is, he's often what he says and what he does are very different. He seems to have some sort of more sensible people around him. We've got, certainly, his chief of staff is a woman who's, got a lot of credentials, knows how to deal with stuff. One of the other appointments that everyone's getting their knickers in a twist about is the appointment of the new Defence Secretary, Pete Hegseth. Now, in America, it's very different from how we appoint people here. So you're an elected member of Parliament here. You become, so you don't have any particular expertise, and it's perfectly normal for someone not to have been a military man or woman who serves as Defence Secretary, etc., etc. But in America, the cabinet is largely supposed to be, experts. But often they're not experts. It's something they've got an interest in. He's appointed Peter Hegseth. Now, the claim is constantly, well, he's just a Fox News anchor, like a part-time anchor on the Fox News station. But actually, this is a man who served 20 years in the military. He has two of the most, true bronze medals for bravery. Served in Iraq, Afghanistan. He also went to Princeton and Yale, two of the top universities, not just in America, but in the world. He then worked on Wall Street. Bear Stearns. I mean, he's a sharp cookie, this guy. He then set up an organisation after leaving the military. In fact, I believe he's still serving. I think he's still in the reserves as a major. But he set up an organisation helping veterans. He may well be a very, very, very good.
I mean, you have Philip Ingram on this show fairly regularly. Would you just sort of box him as just as a contributor, a media contributor? Obviously not. That he brings things to the table because of his years of experience in other very relevant fields. That's how this individual has managed to become, amongst other things, a Fox News contributor. He wouldn't have been able to do this if he didn't have a fantastic CV. I know that people in this country, they don't watch Fox, and it's very easy to sort of think, oh, well, it's very tub-thumping, it's all a bit conspiratorial. But actually, rather a lot of the people on Fox are very impressive individuals in their own right. People like Brett Baer or Megyn Kelly back in the day, actually, they are very good at what they do. You don't get to that position in the American media ecosystem by being a half-wit. This person, I wait and see actually how good he is at the job. It's going to be very interesting to see how America's foreign policy changes. I think there is going to be a pivot away from Ukraine, but it doesn't look like it will be away from Israel, because I think this administration is going to be very hard on Iran in particular, so a lot more support for Israel. But we wait and see, ultimately. And, all these other sort of areas these changes that are being made.
Yeah.
The key thing I would say is this administration is going to go very hard, very fast to try to make a lot of changes and undo a lot of things that have happened.
And do them very quickly. Well, I'm very hopeful about his appointment to the Secretary of State. It looks like it's going to be Marco Rubio. I used to deride him, Little Marco. I mean, he's been rude about everybody, hasn't he?
Yes.
But very staunchly pro-Israel. There's a wonderful post I retweeted yesterday where this is a man who's just literally going, something, aren't you worried about, children dying in Gaza, but the pink-haired people? And he's like, yeah, I mean, it's 100% Hamas's fault. I want Hamas destroyed. I'm on the Israel side. I mean, I'm literally like cheering on it. He goes, and post that, put it on. I want people to know. But also we got the US ambassador to the UN and to Israel, both very, very short. We are going to see some fiery exchanges at the UN. These are people who are not going to just go, I want to be diplomatic. They are going to be pushing American strategic interests. And by the way, that includes our strategic interest, which is for Israel to do well.
I would say this reflects on why ultimately Israel has conducted the war in the way that it has, because actually Netanyahu, I suspect, knew or thought himself that Trump would win, that there was very high likelihood that he would win, and that once that happened, actually support for Israel would massively increase from the US government.
Yeah.
What I would say, though, is I think you're now going to see a lot of manoeuvring from certain Arab states to try to bring this to a head, because they don't actually want this to carry on going. And also they want to throw their weight around a little bit. They want to have their say. If it's going to be isolation for Iran on the international stage, they're fine with that, but there's opportunities there politically to manoeuvre. So the Gulf states in particular, I think you'll see a lot of arm twisting, a lot of, they're going to break ranks, they're going to say things that are perhaps a little bit more pro bringing the war to an end than they have up to now, because frankly, by their standards, they've been rather placid. I think you'll hear a lot of that rhetoric ramped up the more that it seems like Israel has carte blanche. I think it's very interesting.
Well, I'm wondering if we need to bring in Elon Musk to help sort out the NHS. That would be good, would it not? Because Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, is giving a speech in front, rather bravely, in front of NHS chiefs to basically say, you're not going to get your pay rises, you're not going to get your bonuses, you're not going to even keep your jobs if you don't deliver on waiting lists, and that is the crucial thing. And fascinatingly, what I find amazing is, why was this not always the case? If you don't do the job you're paid a six-figure salary for and people die as a result, which is what happens when people don't get operations and treatments in time, it's what is happening right now, that you should lose your job. I mean, of course that should be what should happen. Who didn't think that was a good idea? How dare you be a useless NHS hospital manager who delivers slower waiting times than another neighbouring hospital because you're useless at your job? How dare you take taxpayers' money and basically allow people to die because you're rubbish at your job, but you want to pay your mortgage and put your kids through private school? I mean, frankly, beep you, as I say. I mean, this is immoral. If you're not good at this, go and work in a paper factory. Go and do something that isn't about saving lives. You're not in the right job. And this is the key thing for me. It's like, this should be so obvious, but we've already had the likes of the NHS Confederation, others already bleating about, it's, this is terrible, because people, if we get targets and league tables, then people are going to be motivated to do the wrong things. Like, oh my God, you're grown-ups paid a huge salary. Some of you earn more than the Prime Minister. Do the job you're paid to do. Stop bleating about it. You've got enough money, you've got enough staff. Get the job done.
Also, though, frankly, what does it say about these people that their response is to say, well, if you do this, people might be forced to cut corners and just not do their jobs properly? At which point the government should surely be turning around and going, is that right? Well, would you like to talk us through your thought process there, seeing as you're the voice of experience on this? What corners would you cut? What sort of things might you be doing? Because honestly, to take that attitude, to say that this is basically the culture, I don't think that they're exactly saying the sensible thing.
They're not really bigging up their own people, are they, really?
Well, if they were smarter, perhaps the NHS would be being run better. Perhaps this is rather emblematic of why things aren't going very well.
And we're told they have to pay private sector salaries because they have to compete with the private sector for the best people. Well, if you've really got the best people, then why does he even need to say this? I would love to hear your thoughts on both of these big stories. 0344 499 1000. Health Secretary saying that NHS chiefs will be sacked if they don't cut hospital waiting times, but also your reaction to that and your reaction to Elon Musk getting in that job. Just going to bring you some breaking news, 2 bits of breaking news actually. The actor Timothy West very sadly has died peacefully in his sleep, aged 90. He was with his family and friends. A statement from the family has said he's known for numerous roles in television and theatre. You'll have seen him in virtually everything you've ever seen. Some of the key roles a lot of people remember, he starred as Eric Babbage in Coronation Street, Stan Carter in EastEnders, and he was in the sitcom Not Going Out as well. But he was just in huge numbers of roles over the years. But also news coming out of court now. This ongoing court case, obviously involving the case, a murder case against the father of Sarah Sharif. This is the taxi driver Irfan Sharif. He, along with his wife Binesh Batul and his brother Faisal Malik, are all on trial, accused of the murder of Irfan Sharif's 10-year-old daughter. They, of course, deny murder. But under cross-examination, Sharif, the father, has told jurors today he takes, quote, full responsibility for the death of his daughter. As his wife sobbed in the dock at the Old Bailey today, he had sought to blame his wife for the murder of his daughter, or the killing of his daughter. But today he has told jurors, I accept every single thing. Of course, Sarah was found dead at the family home in Surrey last August after the defendants fled to Pakistan. She had suffered a huge number of injuries, including human bite marks, iron burns, and had been beaten to death. So absolutely horrific story there. But a murder trial in which one of the people pleading not guilty saying, I accept every single thing, and takes full responsibility for the death of his daughter. Obviously, that case is ongoing. We're not able to discuss any more details of that. But in case you just tuned in, just to let you know, at 2 o'clock today, the suspect in the Southport stabbings case from July, Axel Ruda Cubana, he is going to be appearing by video link at Liverpool Crown Court today at a plea and trial preparation hearing. He faces 3 charges of murder, 10 charges of attempted murder, 1 charge possession of knife, all relating to that incident in Southport on the 29th of July. He's also since been charged with possession of ricin, a biological toxin, and also possession of a file, the Al-Qaeda training manual, which is contrary to the Section 58 of the Terrorism Act of 2000. We understand the families of victims of that stabbing will be attending court today. The suspect in that case will be attending via video link at Liverpool Crown Court at 2 o'clock. We'll bring you the latest on that as and when it happens. Benedict Spence, let me just go back to another story. We did talk a little bit earlier about Keir Starmer pledging to cut carbon emissions by at least 81%. This is compared to the 1990s. We spoke to our guest, Rupert Darwell. Look, this is at the COP29 summit, which pretty much no one else important went to because Trump's not there. Sorry, well, not obviously not president yet. Biden's not even there. Wouldn't know where Azerbaijan was anymore. I don't think either of them would, to be fair. The German leaders, the French leaders, people, the Indians, the Chinese. This is no longer the cool invite in town anymore. It's in an oil petro state.
Yeah, exactly.
It's in the middle of nowhere. The one in Brazil next year. Yeah, people might go back to that because Brazil. But basically, he told this blatant out lie that we can hit our net zero targets and it's not going to involve us changing our lifestyles. And as we just spoke to Rupert Darwell half an hour ago, that's just not true. It's not true.
I want to also just add to that Azerbaijan is a country that stands accused of committing ethnic cleansing against Armenians in the very recent times. What a surprise. And as you say, a petro-state, and the President, Aliyev, opened the ceremony by thanking God for the gifts of oil and gas, which has made his country relevant and means that it can get away with things like ethnic cleansing because people need to buy his oil and gas. It's a disgrace that we're there, frankly. But besides the point, it is also a disgrace the way that we're managing energy production in this country. Let's be very clear here. Britain has the most expensive energy prices in the developed world, almost twice what they are in the United States. You want to know why things aren't happening in this country, why growth is stunted and why people are getting poorer? That's partly why. We have it in our power to be entirely energy self-sufficient if we use our natural resources, but we also have one of the world's leading nuclear power developing sectors in this country right now, which we're refusing to use. What we are doing is doubling down on technology, wind, which is massively subsidised, hugely inefficient. We're still doing it. We also are.
We've relied on wind before. That was before the Industrial Revolution, when we were all poor and died
exactly,
early.
Before the Industrial Revolution, that was the big thing in town, and then we found coal, and it all went fantastically well, and now we've decided to stop.
We used to have windmills. They were brilliant, weren't they? Until we came up with better fuels.
The other thing, of course, is solar power. Solar power has got very cheap and
just
very
looking
efficient.
out the window.
But we are, quite literally, along with Scandinavia, one of the worst placed countries in the world for utilising solar power, especially at this time of year. The fact that we are deciding to go down this route when we could have cheap, plentiful energy that we could use to bridge the gap to nuclear, and we're deciding not to do that and impoverish ourselves. It is a disgrace. These people are idiots.
It's immoral.
They have immoral. They have drunk the Kool-Aid, and honestly, I sit here and I feel pretty hopeless about the state. The next 5 years are going to be more of this. It is going to be wanton damage done to the economy of this country, whilst other countries soar ahead.
I mean, said in 2019 we weren't given a choice. All the political parties were basically for these net zero targets, including Boris Johnson signed up to it. And at least in this last election, we actually had the option of a party. I mean, Reform was the only party that wasn't signed up to net zero. The Tories are going to have to get with the programme on this. This is not a policy that is going to survive another election.
No, it's not, because our economy will not survive, and that's the thing. You can believe in the fairy stories for as long as you want.
Some people physically won't survive as we get poorer and colder.
Right now, look at what's happening to Germany's economy. The German government has just collapsed, partly because of what's happening there, because they've done the same thing that we're doing.
Exactly.
It's so stupid.
I know. Again, but it's not just stupid. It won't work. It's not achievable. It's not desirable, and it's immoral. And forcing it on developing nations is
bad enough.
Is so beyond awful. I can't even tell you. Love to hear your thoughts on this. I know a lot of you. With me, I quite rant about this. Yes, I feel quite strongly about this one. It worries me that I know more than the Energy Secretary about this. This does bother me. 11:23 is the time. We're going to get to your calls up next on everything we're talking about. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Get in touch. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. 11:27 is the time. Benedict Spence is still with me. Let's get to more of your messages coming in about Donald Trump appointing Elon Musk to lead this new US Department of Government Efficiency. Chris says, we brought in the Office for Value for Money and appointed a career civil servant. That tells you everything, doesn't it? They set up Doge and appointed the world's most successful businessman who cut waste by 80% at Twitter without impacting service. I wonder who will be more successful. I know, Chris. I wonder as well. Marie says the governments aren't businesses, nor should they be run like one. A country is more like the sum of its parts. We are not robots. Well, yeah, but still, you can still run. I think when you're spending public money, you should be more efficient about it. Kevin says it'll be interesting to see if he culls government staff in the same way he got rid of Twitter employees. I mean, I think that is the plan. Bearing in mind there are a huge number of appointments. Back when Donald Trump became elected in 2016, he just didn't get round to appointing sort of like a third of the appointments. He didn't prepare. Yeah. He just didn't get round. And amazingly, the country still ran. Yeah. Mark says, let the clean-out begin, drain the swamp. Brenda says, I hope he has some influence over here and efficiently tells Starmer what to do. Lots of messages on the Health Secretary Wes Streeting as well, saying NHS chiefs will be sacked if they don't cut NHS hospital waiting times. Susie says, most other people are sacked if they don't do their jobs. Why should they be different? Yeah, exactly. Mark says, how can hospital waiting times be cut when more and more people are entering the country? A lot of people making this point, actually. Population increase result in more medical appointments. They are largely, though, younger people. Most people who are in hospital, you're either in hospital being born, having a baby, or in the latter years of your life, which largely doesn't mean a lot of these people. Rowley says the NHS doesn't sack anyone. They're side-shifted or asked to retire with a big payout and pension pot. I have witnessed this. Oh, yeah, no, they're not even that. They get a payoff, then they go and work at a different NHS trust. Harry says what he says and what he does do completely different things. He'll come up with another excuse as he needs their support and their votes. Let's go to the phone lines, and actually a lot of the calls coming in about net zero, which Benedict and I were just talking about. David is on the line. He's given us a call on 0344 499 1000, as you can at any time, about all the topics we talk about. David's in London. David, what do you want to say?
Hi, Julia and Benedict. Hi. Julia, these wind turbines and the solar will become just like the cycle lanes. They're a complete waste of time, money and energy. People don't want them and they just look ridiculous.
And they take up an awful lot of space and prevent other people going about their daily business, which is what they do when we're having to pay extra for our energy.
Yes, and these wind turbines, they've got a limited lifespan. They cause infrasound, which makes life intolerable for people and animals, and they also cause wind shadows, which makes people living near them. It's like being in a nightclub.
Yeah, no, it is extraordinary. And again, I'm fascinated. And they're all made in China, which has completely cornered the market and all of the rare metals that are involved. We know that they're often mined in child slave-like conditions. And also, you know, China has complete control. They can switch all this stuff anytime they want, stop supplying anytime they want. And as you say, they've only got a short shelf life. Then what do we do with the darn things? We're going to have these things piled up on the coast at this rate.
Yes, 100%. Thanks a lot, Julia.
No, thank you very much. Love your call. Thank you very much. Dave is on the line. He's in Oxford. Dave, I think you want to take issue with something that one of us was saying. What do you want to say?
Well, I just wanted to, like your last caller, nothing's perfect when you're generating energy. Nothing's perfect. And I actually installed solar panels.
Yep.
So I know a little bit about it, and I've been doing it since 2007, 2008.
Yep.
And the efficiency of solar panels now, it was in 2007, 2008, 14%. Now it's 22, 24%. So they're much more efficient. And I believe that we shouldn't be putting them in fields. I think that every new building that is built should have solar panels. Many solar panels on their roofs as they can be put on the roof, should be put on the roof. Also, what's changed the industry really is battery technology. Now, if you're a homeowner, you can generate energy in the day, store it for when you come home at night, and then you can buy energy overnight at 7.5p a kilowatt rather than 28 pence a kilowatt. So you've got energy that you've used in the evening, but then you've got a full battery in the morning.
Yeah.
And then you can send the energy back during the day. If you're generating more than you're using,
you get paid for it.
And you get paid for it.
Yeah.
So it's a 24-hour cycle now, so it's much, much better. A lot of people don't know this. It's a lot better.
Except here's the issue, and you know this as well as I do. Come on. And by the way, that 23% efficiency, it's not that efficient, is it? But also, crucially, we mostly need power.
It's that efficient, Julia.
Yeah, okay. We mostly need power during the winter months when we don't get very much sun.
Well, we do today.
Oh, well, that's okay. Well, I mean, I've only got clouds about my window right now. And a lot of the time we don't have sun. Actually, we often go through long winter weeks when we don't have any wind as well. And we don't have the battery storage. You might be able to store, battery storage for your electricity, small amounts in individual homes. And by the way, I live in a conservation area. We're not allowed to have solar panels. We're not even technically allowed, I think, to have a sky dish and things like that, for goodness sake. Not allowed double glazing. That's how mad the rules are where I am.
It's crazy, it's crazy.
Dave, we don't have the battery storage for the whole country to store electricity to last a couple of months of no sun.
But Julia, each individual person in their home can have a battery and they can look after their
if
own.
They've got solar panels and it's been sunny.
No, they can even just have a battery. They don't have to have solar panels. They can buy energy overnight at 7.5p to store in their.
Here's the thing, Dave. When everyone starts doing that, they'll put up the prices. It's like when lots of people had electric cars, and so you didn't have to pay for your residence parking or congestion charge. And then when everyone gets it, then they put the.
And then you can have free energy once you pay the capital.
Mate, I'm telling you, we are never.
There's no perfect solution. We should all do what we can do for ourselves.
Dave, we are never going to have free or cheap energy of any sort using as anything as unreliable as solar and wind power. End of.
Julia, I know a lot of people who don't have an electricity bill at all with solar across the year. They don't have a bill. It's zero.
Yeah, and how's that working for all the people who live in blocks of flats?
Well, nothing's perfect.
No, but that's what I'm saying. How lovely for someone who lives in a big sprawling farmhouse and they can put them up.
I'm not saying it's the answer to everything.
Well, exactly.
We should have a mixture. We should have some oil and gas.
I don't mind people.
We should also have solar if we can.
No, Dave, I don't mind people having solar panels. I'm not in favour of the wind turbines. I'm not on land. They're horrible, ugly things. They're inefficient.
I agree.
But the point is, the policy of this government and the insanity of the Tory government as well is that actually you will have completely clean electricity, no reliance on coal or anything else, or gas or oil.
Yeah, I agree. But we've got to have a mix. Now, you said that they'd put the price up. If you're generating your own electricity, they can't put the price up because you're generating it yourself.
I'm going to give Benedict the final say.
You're right to say that we need a mix, but the point is, when it comes to solar, we're sort of fiddling around the edges here. If we're just putting it on certain roofs, not on all, we don't want them on any fields at all. We also have to remember that these things do have a shelf life. They are not recyclable. They're very damaging to the environment to make in the first place, and they're almost all manufactured in China. This isn't a domestic industry at all.
They're green jobs, but they're all in China.
So much for being a green leader. This is not something that we're a leader in at all. We all agree on roofs. Fine, absolutely. But nuclear power stations are a lot better.
I'm going to disagree. I don't really like them on people's roofs. I think they look really, really ugly. But, Dave, I'm going to give you a final, very quick say.
Integrate them into the roof so you hardly notice them. So,
all in favour.
But we have to have a mix.
Okay. I don't think we have to have a mix. I think we should just have the cheapest, most efficient, reliable and secure fuel. But that's just me. I'm old-fashioned. I want to live in the 21st century. Dave's in Oxford. I so appreciate your call, Dave. Please call in again. Love to hear your thoughts on all the things we're talking about. Do give us a call, 0344 499 1000. I know Martin's waiting on the line. I promise we'll try and get you. We're going to be taking a quick break now. Then we're going to be talking about those Trump appointments and also appointees and also NHS waiting times. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. This is a Talk with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, at the home of common sense. 11:38 is the time. I've just been looking at a tweet from Elon Musk this morning about Alison Pearson, our guest at midday. She's a Telegraph columnist, a very good friend of mine as well, by the way, I have to point out, who has had a visit from the police over a tweet, a post she wrote on X a year ago. She hasn't been told which one, which apparently they think might be a non-crime hate incident or even a full-on hate crime for inciting racial hatred. I've read all Alison's tweets. She doesn't incite racial hatred. That's not in her bones, I'm afraid. But we're going to be talking to her about that. But Elon Musk has just tweeted this morning, this has to stop. He is not happy about it because basically the police are going after her for something she wrote on his social media site. We'll talk to her about all of that at midday. You do not want to miss that. Right now, let's talk about Donald Trump and his appointment of Elon Musk and others to his administration from January. Steve Gill joins us. He's a former advisor to both Clinton and Bush administrations and joins us. Good morning to you.
Hey, Julia, good to be back with you.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Steve. Let's talk first of all about Elon Musk. He's going to basically co-lead this new government department, US Department of Government Efficiency, which is weirdly outside of government, and he's sharing the job with Vivek, I can never pronounce Vivek Ramaswamy as well. Tell us how that's going to work.
That has to be the funnest job that the U.S. government's going to have under Donald Trump. I mean, you talk about a target-rich environment of cutting waste and fraud and abuse and overregulation and excessive abuse of government. Keep in mind, Julia, how much of a target-rich environment this is.
Oh, yes.
Under the Biden-Harris administration, they allocated $42 billion to building electric vehicle charging stations. They didn't build a single one. They were supposed to expand internet service to rural America with $42 billion. They haven't built a single access point. But my favorite, we have between 400 and 435 different agencies and departments of the U.S. federal government. The fact that we don't know if it's 400, 412, or 435 underlines the problem. Apparently, there may be offices out there where hundreds of people are just sitting around waiting for somebody to tell them, what are you supposed to do?
And we,
they just play solitaire
and we have no idea.
all day.
And Elon Musk has said very clearly he thinks that 99 is enough. But this is the fascinating thing, and we think our government and bureaucracy is bloated over here. My God, you've got problems over there, haven't you? And we're talking about billions. I mean, trillions is spent by the government. And again, a huge amount of debt. And it's US taxpayers, who are hardworking taxpayers, who were forced to foot that bill, whether it's future ones or current ones. Elon Musk, when he runs a lean, mean machine at SpaceX and at Tesla. He's very clear about his ethos. You know, you don't have to go to a meeting. It's if you've got nothing useful to add, you've got nothing useful, you're going to learn from it. You can not go or not or leave the meeting. You don't have to go through the sort of, all the echelons of management to get something done. You just go and talk to the person over there who can get it done. He's also been very clear when he took over Twitter, renamed it X. He got rid of 85% of the staff. Most of whom, turns out, were working at home on lovely six-figure salaries and doing absolutely nothing at all, she said, to try and use the polite phrase. Is there hope that he's going to do that to government? And what impact do you think that would have?
I think it will have a great impact, first of all, on taxpayers, reducing what we have to send because they won't be spending it.
Although those people will then be on the unemployment rolls, but apparently they'll be brilliant public employees, so they should be able to get another job.
Well, and if we increase the prosperity, there will be jobs available. We're being told if we move the 13 to 20 million illegals out of the country, we're going to have a dearth of jobs. Now, maybe all those government employees don't want to do brick masonry. Maybe they don't want to work in the fields. But we'll see how bad they want to survive if there are jobs available, whether they want to actually take them. I think the other thing that we can see in the efficiency of government is it doesn't always take three different agencies doing the same thing three different ways. And sometimes our federal government has rules that forbid you to do one thing, while at the same thing requiring you to do something else. You guys have the same thing as well. So just going through this thing, the Department of Defense hasn't passed an audit in decades. Let's just start with what did you do with the money? Like I used to ask my teenage sons. And in terms of the efficiency, I'll give you one prime example. When I was a lawyer practicing law, I was a partner in a big law firm. One of our partners came up with the brilliant idea of having standing meetings. Then instead of sitting there, cogitating about everything, you had standing partner meetings. It's amazing how much quicker you get out of there if you're having to stand for the meeting rather than sit.
The late Queen Elizabeth always did this. All of her meetings were always standing, and it was a very good way of keeping people brief. It definitely worked that way. Let me also ask you about Peter Hegsworth. Lots of fuss online about the Fox News anchor being appointed as Defence Secretary. But I'm sure, as you'll be able to rattle off, although people say, like, God, he's presenting, it's like putting me in charge of defence. That's not the case. He has actually got an incredibly good track record, hasn't he? Tell us.
Look, Julia, I know you have a mean streak. I wouldn't have a problem with you being in charge of defence for either England or for us. The thing that Pete Hegseth has is, first of all, he lives here in Nashville. So I know Pete, he is a great guy. But they're saying, oh, he's just a TV presenter. He spent 20 years as a combat veteran in the U.S. Army. He is deployed in Afghanistan, in Iraq, at Guantanamo Bay. He has 2 Bronze Stars, which are some of the highest commendations you can get. The idea to dismiss him because, he's just doing weekend television presenting now is an insult to both him and everybody else who's worn the uniform in the US.
Also, he attended Princeton and Yale. He then worked on Wall Street. I mean, this guy is a sharp cookie. These are 2 of the best universities, not just in the US, but in the world. He is a sharp cookie. He also set up an organisation for veterans as well. He's kind of done some stuff as well. It would be interesting to see. I mean, certainly we've had defence secretaries in this country, who were considered to be, paper pushers, and actually they went in, and bean counters, they went in and they actually called people to account and said, again, like, why have you spent this on this aircraft carrier when France got theirs for half the price? Where did the money go? And you actually need some people who come in from outside. The other appointment I'm very hopeful of.
And the biggest thing he's going to do is restore the warrior ethos. We've gone so woke with our military that you've got guys that have rows of ribbons that are all participation trophies that never were in combat. We need to get back to warriors, having a military that is primarily there to kill people and blow up stuff. That's what militaries are supposed to do.
Well, and again, we've had the issue in Britain as well with our military, where it will emerge, extraordinary story emerge, that basically, in terms of training our top jet pilots in the military, they said, you have to have more women and you have to have more ethnic minorities. You can't just have them be a load of white men. That's unacceptable. So really good candidates weren't getting through, and worse candidates were getting through because they were being pointed because they ticked boxes. And I know it's on the bigger scale in America. And you know what happens then? People die. Again, this stuff matters. But I want to get on to Marco Rubio. It's not confirmed yet, but it seems very likely he will be the next US Secretary of State, so the Foreign Secretary of the United States. Now, he is as staunch as they come when it comes to Israel. We've also got a new US Ambassador to the UN and a US Ambassador to Israel. Again, staunchly behind Israel. Absolutely no nonsense on that front. Does that tell us a little bit about where American foreign policy in the Middle East is going to go?
I think that at some point, Donald Trump did get great votes within the Arab American community. I'm hopeful to see soon that he's going to pick somebody from the Arab American community to be in his cabinet as well.
He shouldn't pick anyone because of their background. You should pick people because of what they can say, what they can do.
I agree, but what we're seeing, unfortunately, from Donald Trump right now is a lot of the DEI woke stuff. They're saying that Marco Rubio, the first Latin American to be Secretary of State, you've got Elaine Stefanik, who is a Jewish American. You've got these boxes that they are filling. So I think he will fill it. I think he'll look first at what can somebody do, not what they are. But, the media is going to be saying, well, you didn't pick this person or that person. I think Marco is not the guy I would pick. Bill Hagerty is a longtime friend for 30 years. I think he has the credentials. He was ambassador to Japan. He's been a business guy. He has been a U.S. senator as well. But we'll see if Marco Rubio can get the job done. The new chief of staff is a big political consultant, has been in Florida. She wanted Marco Rubio, and that's kind of where that pick came from. So I think there's more behind the scenes.
We'll see what happens. Always so good to talk to you, Steve Gill. Thank you so much for joining us, former government advisor in the United States. Going to take a quick break now. Up next, we are going to be talking to a former Conservative Health Secretary about, now a Lib Dem, Stephen Dorrell, about this threat, perfectly reasonable, it would seem to me, to NHS chiefs from West Streeting, that if you can't do the job, you're going to get the sack. That's up next. This is Talk.
he's saying it will be it's based on modelling, and it will be £300 that you save in 6 years' time. I mean, it's a nonsense, isn't it?
These are matters of opinion, and I heard very clearly what Ed Miliband just said just there. It could save up to £300 in 2030. Right. And when Susanna Reid asked him how much it's going to go up in the meantime, he didn't have an answer.
No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. I've got some hilarious breaking news for you. The Guardian newspaper has decided they are no longer going to post any of their articles, anything on X, on Twitter, because they say they will no longer use it because some they've been considering, but basically they think it's a toxic media platform and that its owner, Elon Musk, has been able to use its influence to shape political discourse. So basically, because they don't like Elon Musk's political views and he helped Donald Trump to win, they're going to take their ball and they're going to go home. Using the platform to shape political, but it's okay.
We do that.
Yes, we do that. It's okay that Facebook is owned by people, who push things. I mean, it's just gotta love it. Look, we're going to be talking to Alison Pearson, who had the police turned up on our doorstep on Sunday morning. We're going to talk to her about that about something she posted on the social media. Elon Musk has commented on that this morning. Also to Toby Young, the boss of the Free Speech Union as well. We'll talk to him about that and that. The Guardian being more ridiculous than you ever thought The Guardian could be news. But before that, let's talk about things that actually matter to your and my health, our families, and that's the NHS. The NHS boss, effectively, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has announced that basically if you're an NHS trust and you don't deal with waiting lists, you ain't going to get a pay rise, and you're probably going to end up getting sacked if you don't do your job properly. We should all welcome this, shouldn't we? Well, let's put that to Stephen Dorrell. He's a former Conservative Health Secretary and former chair of the NHS Confederation, now a Liberal Democrat, I need to point out. But Stephen, thank you for joining us. And what do you make of what Wes Streeting has announced?
Well, I'm, to be honest, rather underwhelmed, Julia, because you're right that he says that managers should be responsible for the results they deliver and they shouldn't be in post if they don't deliver results. And nobody's going to disagree with that. The bigger thing that he announced, or set out to announce, is enhanced freedoms for trusts and hospitals to manage their own affairs. Well, I was a member of a government that announced exactly that policy almost exactly 35 years ago. So it's not exactly news.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, what I find, though, is we go through this circular process with government, and particularly when it comes to NHS, it should be local people that decide, and we need local managers and empower them. And then, of course, when things go wrong, we need to have it's a postcode lottery of care. We need to have central control. And we just swing one way and then we swing the other. But the main thing comes down to we need people who are good at managing to be managing the NHS. And given that we have such long waiting lists, and we have a situation where one hospital with similar demographics and the same budget can achieve much better outcomes than another one. By definition, there must be people who are in management jobs in the NHS who, frankly, aren't very good.
Well, of course, the NHS employs 1.5 million people, so there will be people who underperform, of course, in any organisation.
But when you underperform in the NHS, people die.
The bigger question is, if you look at a hospital on its own as an island, you will never be able to deliver good performance in a hospital if you haven't got surrounding the hospital GPs that are doing their jobs, social care that is doing its job, the community services that are doing their jobs, holding a hospital manager to account for failures of a healthcare system is in danger of shooting the wrong person.
Because they have no say.
Fundamental questions of their of the surrounding health economy.
Well, it's the local council that's in charge of a lot of that social care, isn't it? And of course, they haven't got any say over GPs a lot of the time. GPs are, to intents purposes, private contractors. But here's the thing: the health secretary isn't just the health secretary; it's the health and social care secretary. This changed quite a long time ago. It's supposed to be all about emphasis on social care. The last Tory government, they talked an awful lot about more money for the, didn't they, for social care? Never actually materialised.
Boris Johnson told us he had an oven-ready solution.
Oh yeah, back in July 22, wasn't it? No.
So 2019, when he became Prime Minister.
Yeah. I mean, again, this thing, everyone talks a game on this, but we all know we can't resolve the issues in the NHS unless we resolve social care. And we know it's going to cost money, but it'll cost a damn sight less than the money we pour into hospitals. So why does no one get to grips with it when everyone says we know what the problem is?
Well, because it's more difficult than making a speech, is the short answer. It's hard. You've actually got to get into the detail, work through with individual local authorities, with individual care providers in the community, with the GPs, and you've got to work out where the priorities are, avoid people going into hospital when they don't need to go into hospital, get them out of hospital when they don't need to be there anymore. And instead of promising to build more and more hospitals, use the hospitals we have as part of a joined-up system that delivers better care.
It sounds so simple when you say it, and yet no one ever does it. There is an issue, though, with some management of hospitals. We know this because there are hospitals that are failing, and then new management is put in, and things improve. So we do know there is a hospital management issue, but I know you'll also know, from many years working in this world, and I've for many years reporting on this, is that actually people who fail, and it's the same as teachers who fail, they just kind of get a payoff, shoved off, a half-decent reference, and then they go and work somewhere else. We've got to get these people out of the system entirely, haven't we?
I do agree with that, but I've also been around long enough to know that it's too easy, as I said, to shoot the hospital manager when actually what's happened is that in a particular locality, social care isn't working, GPs aren't working, community health isn't working, and the problem manifests itself at one point in the system. Of course it's true that people should be held to account for delivering results. Of course that is true. But what you shouldn't be doing is holding one person to account for failures that they, in truth, are unable to deal with.
OK, very fair points. Really interesting to hear from you. Stephen Dorrell there, former Health Secretary himself. Thank you for that. Benedict Spence, he's got a fair point there. But again, we can't constantly go through life going, well, I mean, no, I'm not responsible for everything that happens. So it's like Justin Welby. I don't have to resign. It wasn't me, Gov. At some point, you have to be held.
Yeah, I mean, if you go through everybody's individual cases for why things aren't working, I'm sure they'll all give you very good excuses. But when you look at the system in the round, you go, OK, well, people are dying as a result of the fact that, it's not working properly. So whatever individual excuses you can come up with, great. Work on improving that. And if you don't, and if it's constant just excuses, this is the problem, that's the problem, it's nothing to do with me, well, you're not actually going to improve anything. And actually, it is right to get rid of those people.
And again, if the problem is that they can't be held accountable because they're not in charge of it, well, then change the system. And again, changing that job title for the Health Secretary to Health and Social Care Secretary a few years back hasn't seemed to have done anything to actually improve social care.
Changing
and by
words.
the way,
the
the brilliant idea of sacking tens of thousands of social care workers because they wouldn't get a jab they didn't need for COVID.
Oh, yes, of course.
Perhaps didn't help as well. It always comes back to COVID, always does. Anyway, 11:59 is the time. Up next, PMQs, but we've got Peter Cardwell watching it, so you don't have to. We'll get the highlights very soon. We're going to have Alison Pearson and Toby Young from the Free Speech Union talking about police turning up on her doorstep. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon to you. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Thank you so much for your company today. Welcome to the show. And whether you're listening on DAB Plus radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or on your connected device, it is always great to have your company. If you haven't taken part in our poll, by the way, Benedict Spence's Movember moustache, what he looks like, do have a look at my Twitter feed, X feed, and have a look at that. Also, by the way, that incredible breaking news we had in just the last few moments, that the Guardian newspaper had totally thrown their toys out of the pram over Donald Trump's presidency, including giving counselling to their staff. Didn't need it for October the 7th. That didn't bother them so much. You know, people being raped and mutilated and murdered. Definitely needed it for a Democratic vote because the man that they backed didn't win. But they have now announced they will no longer use X, the social media site owned by Elon Musk, because Elon Musk it's a toxic media platform and its owner has been able to use its influence to shape political discourse. And that, of course, is absolutely outrageous because that's what The Guardian wants to do, and it's not Elon Musk's job to try and win over people to his cause. How dare he use his free speech. Talking of free speech, I'm going to tell you about my guest coming up in the next few moments, journalist Alison Pearson. She's joining me to tell us about the Kafkaesque, Orwellian moment when police officers turned up at her home on Sunday morning to tell her she was being investigated for stirring up racial hatred. In a tweet she posted on X a whole year ago. Also, PMQs is back, but don't worry, as per usual, Peter Cardwell is watching it, so you don't have to. He's going to bring us the highlights, assuming there are any, although with Kemi Badenoch, I think there probably will be a little bit later. And also, we're going to be talking about leaked documents that showed that the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, despite him denying it, did plan to charge motorists to drive in the capital a whopping £2 per mile. Good Lord, that's a lot of money. As I say, this is Talk. It is the home of common sense. It's home also of Benedict Spence and his moustache joining us still. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on what my next guest has to say. Alison Pearson, as I say, is a leading Telegraph columnist. She's also apparently someone who may well be guilty of inciting racial hatred. Well, that's certainly what the police told her when they turned up at her door on Sunday morning as she was getting ready for a Remembrance Sunday service. I'm delighted to say also Alison Pearson joins us right now. Good afternoon to you, Alison.
Good afternoon, Julia.
This is so extraordinary. When you told me about this and told me you were writing a piece, it's front page of the Telegraph today, I did think, well, that was a bit silly of the police, given your reach, given the fact that you are a national newspaper columnist, and what a surprise it's on the front page of the Telegraph, because people don't take too kindly to the police infringing on the right of free speech of journalists, funnily enough. But people say this is Kafkaesque, people say this is Orwellian. I'd love to say I was shocked that police turned up on your door and accused you of initially a non-crime hate incident. Now they're saying it could possibly be a criminal offence. But I'm not shocked anymore, given what's happened in recent years. But talk us through what actually happened as you were getting dressed, getting ready to go to a Remembrance Sunday service.
Yeah, my husband said there's 2 coppers at the door. So I went down. I thought that's a bit odd. They're closing our street for the parade on Remembrance Sunday. So I thought maybe it's linked to that. And then one of them said to me, 2 young coppers, and they said, we're here about a non-crime hate incident, which I have sort of vaguely heard about before. And he said it related to a tweet of a year ago, which was stirring up racial hatred, he said. And I said, oh, that's very interesting. What did it say, the tweet that you think was stirring up racial hatred? And he said, I'm not allowed to tell you that. And then God
forbid you should know what you're actually being accused of.
God forbid I should know, exactly. And then I said, who is my accuser, which is the next question. And then he said, we're not allowed to tell you that either, but it's not an accuser, it's the victim.
Of course it is. Yes. Yes. What were you thinking? What were you thinking in that circumstance? So you're not allowed to know what it is you've done, who's upset about it, what you've written. How are you supposed to defend yourself in those circumstances?
That was my next question to the policeman, and they did look a bit baffled. And then you do know me quite well, Julia, so I channeled my inner Hartley-Brewer. I stood on the doorstep in my dressing gown and I said to the young coppers, we're here today on Remembrance Day. We are commemorating hundreds of thousands of young British men who gave their lives so that their descendants could live in a free country. And I said, what do you think they would think of you turning up here on Remembrance Day to basically quash my free speech and accuse me of a non-crime hate incident? And they did look quite awkward, Julia, I've got to say.
I'm good for you. I mean, my first thought is, but you're police, you deal with crimes. You're saying it's not a crime, so thank you so much and goodbye. But now Essex Police have said, well, it may possibly be a crime. But non-crime hate incidents are being in the news an awful lot. We're going to talk to Toby Young from the Free Speech Union because they've campaigned really heavily on this, and we've seen the likes of Harry Miller from, Fair Cop actually, getting a non-crime hate incident record expunged from his police record on the basis that it could actually damage his chances of doing work in the future with vulnerable people or prevent him from getting a job. Because the thing about non-crime hate incidents is, by definition, it's not a crime. But if someone says they believe that something was racist or sexist or transphobic or homophobic or something of Islamophobic, something like that, someone saying it, even if it wasn't directed at them, might have been something they saw or heard about or read, that by definition it is recorded as an incident of that kind. And it doesn't matter what your intent was. It doesn't matter that no one was hurt by it. It doesn't matter that it's not actually, objectively speaking, a crime or hateful. If someone perceives it as such, this is under the law, if someone perceives it as such, it goes on your record. So it doesn't matter really what you say, does it? Because whatever it is, it'll still go on your record.
When she was the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman wanted to scrap the non-crime hate incidents because she thought that they were directly against free speech, which they are, right? Because if literally anything anyone says can be a non-crime hate incident, where's that going to end up in a democracy? Yeah. But she did introduce, Toby Young will tell you more about it, but she did introduce sort of statutory guidance which said that common sense has to be applied, Julia. You'll approve of that. There has to be a public interest in the police coming around to my house on Sunday morning, wasting their time. There has to be a proven public interest. There also has to be proof that I would go from my Twitter statement to cause hostility. As you know, I'm a very violent person.
I mean, every time I have a Saturday night out with you, we're always getting into a fight. I know what it's like. Yeah.
Slamming beer glasses down on the, I mean, look, it's all ludicrous, but the police were supposed to rein it in, right? They were told, clearly these must not be misused to blight people's lives and to restrict free speech. But in fact, they have scaled them up. So I was interested to look at Essex Police's record for enforcing crime.
Well, hold on a minute, Alison. I mean, if they've got time to come and talk to a middle-aged woman, no disrespect, it's probably the same age, but talk to a middle-aged woman about something she wrote on social media a year ago while she stands in a dressing gown on a Sunday morning, I don't need you to tell me the crime stats for Essex because clearly they have solved all crime by now because they had time to do that, no?
Yeah. No sexual violence, there's no shoplifting, it's a completely...
Well done, Essex Police, a round of applause. What are the actual stats then?
The actual stats are 9.6 solving of sexual offences.
9.6%, yeah.
15% of robberies, but 15.9% for hate crimes, which they don't have to do any actual solving at all, do they? Because they can just spot us on the internet. And 18.6% for racial, religious, aggravated offences. So the offences they do a bit better in are the sort of spurious ones of thought crime.
Yeah, I mean, vehicle offences, 2.5% are actually solved. Burglary, 6.3%, robbery, 13%, violence against the person, 12%. So basically they have a shockingly bad, I mean, no worse than probably any other police force in the country, record on solving actual crimes that actually hurt people and cause them harm or cost them money. But they definitely got time for two coppers on a Sunday morning to turn up at your house to say you wrote a hurty tweet. Have you been able to identify which tweet it is they think was a racially aggravated offence, a race hatred crime?
No, I haven't, but because it was a year ago and it was after the massacres, the Hamas massacres, which you've often described, and I probably would have been tweeting around that. And perhaps some people didn't like me being mean to Hamas, Julia.
Well, if you will be mean to terrorists, what do you expect?
So I suspect it was something to do with Alison Sticks Up for Jews, because, of course, we attract a lot of thing for that. We're having quite a bit of banter about this. I have to say it's horrible. It's not nice in our country to have that. And I was both very upset, but I was actually angry because what on earth are you doing here? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, again, it is, as people say, it's Kafkaesque, it's surreal, it's ridiculous. And, it's just crazy and, will nothing come of it? And, you've got an organisation like the Telegraph backing you. But you're someone, just doing your job and exercising your right to free speech as a private individual as well. And the police turn up on your door, and it doesn't matter if it's two young coppers who can't wipe their own backsides. It's still, nevertheless, very intimidating and very scary. And for someone who doesn't have your fortitude, and you found it upsetting, and I know I would as well, doesn't have people backing you, and you like me, you remember the Free Speech Union, and say Toby's waiting on the line as well, that actually for an awful lot of people, what it says to them is zip it, stop tweeting, stop speaking out, don't say anything, because you might be accused of a crime or a non-crime hate incident that will mean you'll either lose your job or you'll actually never be able to get another job again. And that has a chilling effect on free speech.
Well, do you remember after the Southport riots, I think the actual Home Office tweeted, think before you post. It's a real big brother thing, isn't it, really? And if someone like me, like you, I try to speak out for normal people, what normal people's reaction was, I think we can agree most people watching you will not be thinking this is a brilliant use of police time. They'd quite like someone to come around and investigate their burglary. But the fact that using certain words now, where are we going, Julia? Are we going to, if we, with Islamophobia, are we going to be allowed to say we find the presence of, tens of thousands of illegal migrants in our country threatening to girls and women, which I do, and the reckless policy of endangering female safety in our country. Now, how soon before that is, you're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to mention where they come from. They come from incredibly dangerous, misogynist societies, Afghanistan, Iraq, and so on. But then you think, am I going to next time think twice before I write anything? That worries me because, we shouldn't. People often say, Julia, about people like us, you're brave. It shouldn't be brave.
No.
Country
to state particularly facts, but be reasonable opinions. Hey, listen, I was in breach of Ofcom guidelines technically for saying that trans women are men. A statement of fact. Genuinely, there is an insanity in this country, and it's very, very dangerous and it's pervasive. And I know from the work of the Free Speech Union that it's happening on a much bigger scale because most people this happens to don't get a front page story in the Telegraph, don't get to write it up, and don't go on national radio to discuss it. Just before we go to Toby, though, just your final thoughts. You're going to presumably challenge this. The police said they will investigate. My guess is they're going to go, oh, no further action. But you'll never be told who it was, what it was, and you'll never know for sure, is it on my record anywhere?
Yeah, I think I want to know. Toby Young and the Free Speech Union do great work actually making sure that these personal details are removed because, say, for example, I'm a trustee of a charity. I might have such a black mark against my name if this is recorded, going absurd as it seems, right, that I might be a danger. But, safeguarding things like that, people might say, oh, that woman's got a non-crime hate incident against her. And it's just, it is just wrong. You know, it's just terrible and wrong, and it shouldn't be allowed, and these whole things should be just repealed. And but I fear under Labour we'll have even more of it, Julia.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the Tories allowed this to happen under their watch and totally failed us all. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, I've got no faith in her on this. I think they're going to ramp it up. And a lot of the police chiefs as well, I think, are a big part of the problem, the politicisation of the police college. Alison Pearson, great for you to speak out. Really appreciate that. I wish I'd been there at the time. That would have been an interesting exchange, wouldn't it? But Alison Pearson, you are a fantastic fighter for freedom, so thank you so much. Let's talk right now to Toby Young. He's the director of the Free Speech Union. We kept mentioning that. Toby, I know she when Alison told me about this, first thing she said was, I've spoken to Toby Young, and you know, you're my first port of call in these sort of circumstances. I've been waiting for the police to knock on my door for things I say, and I'm just like, do you know what? Come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. I'm with J.K. Rowling. There are plenty of things I'm willing to go to prison for, refusing to shut my mouth on key issues that I really care strongly about. But this does have a chilling effect on ordinary people, because this is happening on a grand scale, isn't it?
It is happening on a grand scale. The Free Speech Union have calculated that since 2014, when the concept of non-crime hate incidents was first introduced by the College of Policing, incidentally a quango created by David Bonfire of the Quangos, Cameron. So since 2014, we calculate that in England and Wales alone, more than 250,000 non-crime hate incidents have been recorded. That's an average of more than 65 a day, Julia. You worry, you wonder why, if your house is burgled or your car is broken into, the police won't bother to actually send anyone round. It's because they're far too busy policing our tweets to police our streets.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the police to decide whether to hand the file to the CPS for my bag being stolen on the 1st of June. I got them the video footage of the guy doing it and tracked the guy with my AirPods and confronted him. They got video footage of that from the McDonald's. Still haven't found the way to actually bring the charges against the bloke. That, you know, I mean, that's the madness we're in. But this is the thing. People are already up in arms about the abject failure of police to actually tackle real crime, street crime, bag thefts, phone thefts, burglaries, bike thefts, attacks of the person, knife crime, rapes. You know, the clear-up rate for all of these crimes, from the most minor, from shoplifting, it's not minor if it's your stuff being stolen from your shop, up to rape. Genuinely, they are failing across the board. So why on earth do they have time, and why do they prioritise sending 2 coppers round to visit a middle-aged woman in a dressing gown on a Sunday morning about something she wrote a year ago? Why on earth would they spend their time on that when we're told that they are so overworked?
Well, I think it's important not to blame ordinary police officers. They're being directed to do this by chief constables, and chief constables in turn by the College of Policing. It comes from the high-ups. It doesn't come from the ground up. I'm sure ordinary police officers would much prefer to be investigating actual crimes rather than non-crimes. The rationale for it, Julia, the rationale produced by the academics employed as consultants by the College of Policing dates back to a concept that a social psychologist came up with in the late 1940s called the pyramid of hate. And in the pyramid of hate, you have hurty words at the bottom, at the base of the pyramid, and genocide at the top. And in the wake of what had happened during the Holocaust, this social psychologist was puzzling over, how do we stop that happening again? What can we do to prevent genocide? And his
arresting Alison.
His idea was we have to nip it in the bud by stopping people saying hurty words, because that inexorably leads up the chain, up the steps of the pyramid to genocide. I mean, a completely ridiculous hypothesis, no empirical evidence to support it whatsoever, but this has now been embraced by the College of Policing, and they think that the way to reduce hate crime is to nip it in the bud by turning up on the doorstep of people like Alison Pearson, because she'd said something, you know, that some people have supposedly found upsetting on Twitter over a year ago, that's somehow going to prevent hate crime. Now, Harry Miller, who is the great campaigner, the ex-copper who's been campaigning against non-crime hate incidents and has won a number of significant victories, including in the Court of Appeal against the College of Policing. He understands that this is the rationale. He submitted FOI requests to all the police forces in England and Wales to ask them, well, have you done any research to substantiate this theory? Is there any evidence that actual hate crimes have declined since you started recording, NCHIs? And the police were baffled by this request. Said, no, we don't collect the data to enable us to make that kind of do that kind of analysis. They're clearly not interested in testing whether that hypothesis is true. And I think the reason for that, Julia, is because really that's just a fig leaf. What it's really about is punishing heretics, is punishing people who fall foul of the new public morality. If you say something that a member of a supposed victim group is offended by, then that is a breach of the new public morality, and you should be punished in some way.
But also, presumably, again, it's like with Stonewall in every sort of organisation and things like that as well. They've actually got these bodies where you get these brownie points, you get rewarded because you've done a good job on this. Don't worry about the women being raped. Don't worry about the burglaries and the bike thefts. But you've ticked some boxes on the stuff that the wokerati care about. Can I just ask you, just finally, in terms of, this is going to happen to a lot of my audience members who do also speak out. This is happening on such scale, 65 people a day. Police turn up at your door and they ask you, do they have no duty? They don't have to tell you who's reported this. They don't have to tell you even what you're actually accused of saying or writing that has been a problem. Is that right? They don't have a duty to tell you at that point?
That's correct, yeah.
Do they at any point have a duty to tell you?
No, I don't think they do.
I mean,
Julia,
you're accused of a crime, but you don't know what the crime is.
No, I mean, I think if it eventually, in order for it to be recorded as a non-crime hate incident, not only do they not have to tell you what it is you've been accused of or who your accuser is, they don't even have to tell you that an NCHI has been recorded against your name. You might well have an NCHI recorded against you, Julia, and you just don't know about it.
How would I find out?
Well, the Free Speech Union can submit an FOI request to the Metropolitan Police and ask if they've got any NCHIs.
I think we should probably do that.
We probably should. And if they have, we can then apply for them to be removed. We've done that on behalf of several of our members at the Free Speech Union. It's one of the services we offer. There are, I mean, if they've recorded 250,000 of these things, then, 250,000 people in England and Wales alone will have these things recorded against their names in police databases, and they can show up when you do an enhanced criminal records check.
And you may not know about it. You just didn't get the job.
Or they don't discover that they've got one of these things on their record until they apply for an enhanced criminal record check, and there it is on their criminal record, the fact that they didn't commit a crime.
Yes, I mean, this is the bit that blows my mind. This is so shocking, and I'm sorry, but, I know that Labour are mad on this stuff. Tories have so much to answer for on this, for not dealing with this. I find it extraordinary that a Home Secretary can say, you don't do this anymore, and they just carry on. Who is in charge? Who is in charge? Toby Young, fantastic work on this. Big thanks to you, Director of the Free Speech Union. Big thanks to Alison Pearson as well. Benedict Spence has been listening to all of that. I mean, let's face it, that moustache is going to have a non-crime hate incident.
If not, I'm going to tweet something now just to make sure
it is both laughable and absolutely terrifying that this is happening.
And again, as you said, the Conservatives actually have the most to answer. All of this, what happened to Alison Pearson, didn't happen under a Labour government. It happened at the tail end of 14 years of Conservative government. So, honestly, to that be the end point, that shows you why they lost ultimately, because they'd lost control of the institutions of government. They didn't care. They didn't prioritise this sort of stuff because they just didn't. They thought it didn't apply to them. But I tell you what, next 5 years, this thing will be doubled down on by
100%.
It will be weaponised, and it will take a Conservative to come in at some point, by which I mean somebody on the right, and undo all of this thing. Until actually they wise up to that they have to do this sort of thing, they're not going to get back into office is the thing, because people
and quite rightly. 12:25 is the time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. This is Talk. This is, somewhere's got to be, the home of common sense.
We are living in a dystopian world where if you're part of the majority, if you're part of the democratic majority, the British majority in this country, you are prejudiced against. Just remember what happened after the Southport riots. The Prime Minister was on national television categorising everyone as far right, which is an extraordinary statement for the Prime Minister to make, because that would suggest he knows the political disposition of everyone who was protesting and rioting.
One or two of the girls are very, very good co-commentary, very, very good. But the problem is that there are now so many of them now. They're actually flooded with them, and so the girls can commentate on all the men's games, but the men can't commentate on the women's games generally. Which what's all that about?
Well, that's the BBC for you, and other channels, to be fair.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon to you. This is Talk, the home of common sense. It's coming up to 12:30. Benedict Spence is still with me with his Movember moustache. I can't stop mentioning it, sorry. By the end of the show, we must actually mention what the poll is on what he actually looks like. Do have a look at my Twitter
recommendations.
feed. You can look at my feed. You won't see any Guardian stuff on there, because Guardian say they're no longer posting on Elon Musk's X because it's a toxic media platform. Wow, I mean, they should see the stuff I get sent every day.
I was going to say, you posted a picture of my moustache and the Guardian went, that's it.
That may have been the catalyst. It may have been, yeah. Elon Musk has been able... What I find fascinating, Elon Musk has been able to use its influence to shape political discourse. How dare someone post something on a social media site largely used for politics to influence people? How outrageous.
Well,
I mean,
all he did was stop suppressing people. It's not like he's amplified anything. He just said, we're going to take the suppressors.
He amplifies his own tweets. You can't keep away from him.
His own
but
tweets.
Anyway.
He is Elon Musk.
But you know
Musk.
what? If I owned a social media site, it'd be all mine.
Also, it's not like nobody was reading his tweets before he owned it. He was one of the biggest people on there.
This is true. I only follow about 400 people, and he is one of them.
Yeah.
Let's go to the phone lines. And funnily enough, you've got quite a lot to say about Alison Pearson facing that non-crime hate incident police investigation. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Kish is in Greater Manchester and joins us. Hello, Kish. What do you want to say?
Afternoon, Julia.
Afternoon.
Yeah, I had a similar type of experience in the summer.
Right.
I just moved back to my hometown after the breakdown of my marriage, and just went to a park that I used to go to as a child. Went for a few coffees there to a community cafe. Just had a bit of chit chat with one of the baristas, young lady, about 18, 19 years old.
Okay.
Just general conversation.
I'm going to need a slightly shorter version of this, my love. Time's against us.
Yeah, so just following a few conversations with her, I had a couple of coppers turn up at my door alleging that she said I was harassing her.
But you were just doing friendly chat as you bought your coffee?
Just chit-chat.
No sexual comments, no...
No, she opened up about the fact she was in a same-sex relationship, that she volunteered that. I just said, yeah, great, no worries, how's it going? And then suddenly...
Didn't need to know that, I'm not interested, but that's what I would have said.
Exactly.
But... Wow, so you were accused of what, of homophobia?
I was accused of stalking and harassment.
And you'd never spoken to her other than when you were getting a coffee in the coffee shop?
Correct.
Wow, so what happened as a result of that?
Well, I mean, I'm a former lawyer, so I took a pretty hard line with the coppers. I got quite aggressive with them in the sense of, if this goes any further, I will. Don't you worry, I'll be taking further action against you and the accuser. Nothing's come of it, obviously, because nothing happened.
Yeah.
But obviously, I've got quite severe disabilities as well, so. It's meant that now I just close myself up in the house, and I don't...
Because you're wary of anyone you speak to. That's absolutely horrible. I mean, again, one wonders again, was it her who made the accusation, because really you weren't told, or was it someone else who overheard the conversation?
It was her and her mother. She's obviously got issues of herself in her own background, so it just deflected onto me. But obviously now that's it.
But again, she must have made something up, because if she goes to business, there's a man and we're chatting at the coffee shop, and they said, has he contacted you outside the coffee shop? Has he waited for you afterwards? Has he made sexual comments? Exactly. And if her answers to all of those were no, then stop wasting police time, love. It's a normal human interaction.
Correct.
Oh, mate, I'm really, really sorry about that. But again, it makes you very anxious, because you're worried, well, what am I, if I say good morning to the wrong person, am I again going to get in trouble? Thank you very much for your call. I'm really sorry to hear that. Greg is in London. He's on the line as well. Hello, Greg.
Hi, Julia.
Hello, what do you want to say?
Yeah, these non-hate crime incidents. How come people can walk down the street in London wearing paragliders on their back, glorying genocide, and that's not a non-crime hate incident because she got let off by the judge?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, she was actually the woman who did that. She did actually end up going to court, but again, extraordinarily, she did actually not face any proper sentence, which was extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's also Nick Lowell's. I mean, what he put out on Twitter about,
Can I just stop? Sorry, this guy from Hope Not Hate, Nick Lowell's. Yeah, just so people know who he is. Yeah, and the same day that Bernie Spofforth was apparently inciting riots, completely untrue. It was not the case. He wrote a tweet. It turned out to be completely false, didn't it? About there were acid attacks on Muslims.
Yeah, and absolutely nothing. He wasn't brought to bear. Nothing. It seems that these only apply if you have one point of view, which is shutting down, people who aren't on the extreme left, I would suggest.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's absolutely one rule for one and one rule for the others. That is what is so unfair. Greg, thank you very much indeed for that. We're going to take a quick break. Up next, we're going to get the highlights of Prime Minister's questions. I mean, I assume we're going to get some. Peter Cardwell is going to be here. He's been watching it. Her second outing for Kemi Badenoch as a Conservative Party leader. I think Nigel Farage has asked a question as well. We'll find out what happened up next. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon to you. This is Talk, the home of common sense and non-crime hate incidents, probably, as we've been talking to Alison Pearson and Toby Young about that. Benedict Spence is still with me. He's a Conservative commentator. Delighted to be joined by Peter Carwell now, Hello. Talk presenter, of course, and political commentator. Good afternoon to you.
Hello.
Have you taken part in our poll today yet?
No, what's the poll? What's the
poll?
question?
Well, we'll see. Our good friend, Mr. Benedict Spence, is sporting his regular annual Movember moustache. Best thing not to do. I put a picture out. We've done. Yes, you've made eye contact. It could attack. Be careful. just pretend you haven't seen it. But this moustache has been. It's been a source of much hilarity for me for many years. We did a poll many years back, but I wanted to see any update. I'm asking: does he look like a World War II prisoner of war, an extra in Narcos, a 1970s porn star, or other? Please specify. Now, Benedict has already suggested he looks like the mayor of every Italian town ever. Many people, Bob from Bob Burger's cartoon.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
An extra in the Birdcage movie. Apparently the love child of Renee Artois and Yvette from Allo Allo.
I also like that. That's good.
Tom Selleck. Someone, June.
Tom Selleck.
Like
I am leaning. Not pushing enough for Tom
British
Selleck.
Army General. Des Lynam's little brother. Ron Jeremy's love child. Oh, apparently another says the new James Bond. I mean, a bit too much love for you here.
Yeah.
I'll read out the final results at the end of the show. Peter Cobble, what do you reckon?
I definitely think 1970s porn star. No doubt about it.
No doubt. Saying.
Another connoisseur of the genre.
Do get your votes in before I read them. Anyway, Peter,
Hello.
You're here to tell us what happened on PMQs. First question, as always, because it's always the highlights of PMQs. Were there any highlights?
This was probably one of the worst PMQs I've ever seen.
Wow.
Kemi Badenoch was stumbling over her words. Keir Starmer was
she was really good last week.
Yeah, she was, but she was stumbling a bit. They were all a bit prepared. It was it was sort of all right. Keir Starmer's answers were okay. The highlight, actually, there was a highlight, and that's we're going to come to a little bit later on when Nigel Farage asked a question. But I thought I'd bring you maybe one question, the best of the 6 questions from Kemi Badenoch, because she's really get annoyed about the national insurance contributions. We're back to those people, those people like, let me tell you about Kelly, let me tell you about John, let me tell you about the Jeremy Corbyn thing. So we heard about Kelly. I'm not going to bring in that, but we heard about Kelly and her national insurance contributions. But essentially, the key point was about South Cambridgeshire, this 4-day week of the council for CMRs for less money. She brought it up. Keir Starmer accused her of making it up. Let's see what happened.
OK, let's play that clip.
Their ideological budget was designed to milk the private sector and hope nobody would notice. Now his cabinet ministers are all queuing up for public sector bailouts to his tax mess. If he is going to bail out the public sector, then can he tell us this? Does he think it is appropriate, as the Ministry for Housing has done, to approve a 4-day week for councils that is not flexible working, but is actually part-time work for full-time pay?
Questions based on what we're actually doing are usually better than fantasy questions made up. Mr. Speaker, what did they deliver in 14 years? Low growth, stagnant economy, a disastrous mini-budget, a £22 billion pack. And now she wants to give me advice on running the economy. I don't want to be rude, but no, thank you very much.
God, I can't do another 4 years of him. I keep saying this, but every time I can't do it. I really can't do it. So it wasn't her strongest performance, but I mean, it is a point. Full-time pay for part-time work. Everyone says it's really efficient. You can't get anyone to answer the phone at the council anyway.
Well, exactly, yeah, and it's often the way. And there's so many other public bodies as well. People just want a bit of value for money. HMRC, I was on the phone to them the other day. 43 minutes I waited.
Being charged, by the way, the whole time. It's not like they don't answer the phone. They answer the phone technically, and then.
Well, then I got through to a human being, and they hung up on me. Literally, I said, "Hello, my name is," and that was it.
I mean,
didn't even say my name.
To be fair, we all do that at the office to him as well. To be fair,
you don't pick up the phone in the first place. But there was.
He does write a great WhatsApp.
There was actually a highlight at PMQs, and this was the question, not just from Nigel Farage, but in fairness to Keir Starmer, he gave quite a funny answer. So Nigel Farage.
We always give credit when it's due. Yes. My thing is when Keir Starmer is good, I always give credit. When I'm always going to say, well, let's have a watch and a listen of the exchange between these two men. There's no love lost between these.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure the Prime Minister and the whole House would wish to congratulate Donald Trump on his landslide victory last week. Hold on. But within a couple of days, we'd learned of a third assassination attempt. Charges have been laid, and behind it are Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Has the time not come, Prime Minister, to prescribe what is so obviously a terrorist organisation, and in doing so, not just do the right thing, but maybe mend some fences between this government and the incoming presidency of Donald Trump's, given that the whole of his cabinet have been so rude about him over the last few years?
Well, I'm glad to see the honourable member making a rare appearance back here in Britain. He spent so much time in America recently. I was half expecting to see him on the immigration statistics when we see him back. But he may have missed. I did congratulate the incoming president last week, and we will work with him. The point he makes about Iran is a very serious point, and we will work across the House and with our allies on it. Obviously, on question of prescription, we keep them under review. Thank you.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite a good line.
That was a proper. I mean, the rare appearance is a good line, but
Yes.
to follow it up, 33 with the immigration
That's the
stats.
funniest thing he will ever say.
That's it. It's been and gone. We've got another 4 and a half
That's
years.
it.
We're going to have.
That's
no,
it.
but the mood in the House. Again, this, obviously, you said Kemi Badenoch still going on about the budget. I mean, quite rightly, because it's actually impacting people right now. This is when we
and they're waking up to it as well. They're waking up to the implications of the example she gave. Someone who runs a nursery for children, 500 children, quite a big nursery. National insurance contribution something like 10,000 now will go up to 24,000. So those real world examples can be quite useful.
Absolutely. And in terms of the general mood of the House, I mean, we have seen Keir Starmer. He's just been off to a European summit, and then he went to Baku, the Azerbaijani capital, where the behave after COP29. But he was pretty much the only world leader who was there. I mean, the French, the Germans, the Americans, the Indians, the Chinese, no one else bothered. I mean, it just shows how unbelievably out of touch he is. But he and Ed Miliband just pushing all their net zero stuff, and now he's sort of come back to the real world. Of course, he flew there and flew back again.
Of course
he did. But I mean, what is the mood on the Labour benches? Because things haven't been going very well.
They haven't. I think they're still giving him a little bit of a chance. They're waiting to see what happens with the budget. But there are a lot of backbenchers on the Labour benches, particularly, who find this very, very hard to sell to their constituents, and they're looking forward to the council elections. I think that's going to be really difficult for
Labour so far. By-elections, they've been losing an awful lot, haven't they?
Yes, they have council by-elections. We'll see if there are possibly some parliamentary by-elections as well. But Labour are not happy.
And what about the Tories in terms of sort of, it didn't actually become nasty and bitter, the battles for the Tory leadership this time around. But Kemi Badenoch was the winner. But I mean, let's face it, Robert Jenrick fought a good fight, and he came, not far off, but she won a solid victory there. Definitely the choice of the members. But is there any evidence the party is now sort of they're getting on with working out what they're going to do next?
Yeah, they're doing a lot of organisational behind-the-scenes stuff. They're looking at money, they're looking at advisors, they're looking at how the shadow cabinet will be supported.
Because they've got no money.
They've got no money. They're giving her a chance, I think. It's only been a short period of time, but this was not a particularly good PMQ's outing for Kemi Badenoch, so I think she's going to have to get better, but nonetheless, they will be a little bit patient, but their patience will eventually run out. I was
going to say, if Keir Starmer's doing better lines than you, and again, I thought she did an absolutely 10 out of 10 performance last week. Really hit the ground running. But we shall see. Peter Carver, always a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. Don't forget, he's voted. I need you to vote in the moustache poll. To have a look at we talk about so many important things.
Well, this is an important thing.
This is an important thing.
Could there be a sort of high street brand, a sort of cake named after Benedict's caterpillar?
There should be, shouldn't there? Can I ask you just finally, are you very, very upset about The Guardian no longer posting their articles on X, formerly Twitter, because it is a toxic social media platform?
I'm just going to take it a day at a time, Julia. But I know that my artwork, as you know, we get paid on the 17th, and I know my donation will be going to The Guardian as soon as I'm paid, because they're just such a great
They always ask for donations, don't they?
Yeah, they do. It's not as if they would ever, publish anything that's, anti-Semitic or in any way, against promoting the trans agenda or anything toxic like that.
I love it. When are you next on air?
I'm on with Jeremy Kyle later today, and I'm presenting on Friday at 4 o'clock.
Fantastic, wonderful stuff. We'll all look forward to that. Peter Cobble, thank you very much. 12:47 is the time. Up next, Howard Cox on a... Oh yes, what a surprise! Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, was planning to charge motorists a whopping, I get this, £2 a mile to drive through London, our capital city. Good grief. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk.
One or two of the girls are very, very good co-commentary, very, very good. But the problem is that there are now so many of them now. They're actually flooded with them, and so the girls can commentate on all the men's games, but the men can't commentate on the women's games generally. Yeah. What's all that about?
Well, that's the BBC for you, and other channels, to be fair.
Now he's saying it will be it's based on modelling, and it will be £300 that you save in 6 years' time. I mean, it's a nonsense, isn't it?
These are matters of opinion, and I heard very clearly what Ed Miliband just said just there. It could save up to £300 in 2030. And when Susanna Reid asked him how much it's going to go up in the meantime, he didn't have an answer.
No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, and the home of mocking Benedict Spence's Movember moustache. But do your last few moments to vote in that poll. I'm sure Howard Cox would have his views on this as well. He joins us. He's the founder of Fairfield UK to talk about, oh, what a surprise. It turns out that the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, had been planning all along, as people were claiming he was, and he denied, to charge people per mile to drive in the capital city. A whopping, £2 per mile that he was looking at charging. New documents have revealed. Howard Cox, good morning to you. Good afternoon to you. I imagine this has come as no surprise to you whatsoever.
Well, hello, Julia. And I love the moustache, Benedict.
Don't encourage him, Howard.
Yeah, anyway, yeah, you're absolutely right. This has been going on for 2 years. He spent already £150 million on a secret project called Operation Gladys, which actually is actually about pay per mile. And with this new Labour government in as well nationally, they're working together now to bring pay per mile right across the country. I was really fortunate, and I'm delighted we got that freeze and fuel duty in the budget. You know, I didn't expect to get that with Labour.
Yeah. Given what other taxes they put up as well. The trade-off, though, is, of course, pay per mile is definitely on its way. Well, this thing, you say he spent 150 million quid. Of course, I mean, yeah, he's not paid that. It's not his own money. It's taxpayers' money. Money that comes from the central government and from people who pay, you know, the 10 million people who live in London who pay their council tax and their taxes there. I mean, again, this isn't about, like, congestion. The claims we've always had about, oh, we've got to limit congestion in the city areas, and then we've got to limit pollution. Again, pollution was going down long before congestion charges and has continued to go down. It's been going down because vehicles are cleaner, and that's a good thing, obviously. But then it's all about all the congestion. But most people's local areas don't worry about congestion. And you know what? If you have to drive to the supermarket and back because you've got a big load of stuff, frankly, it doesn't matter this congestion. You still need to do the journey, do you not? So this £2 per mile to drive London, it's going to, I think, treble the cost of driving from outer London into inner London. But it's actually going to charge people for driving around their own localities, which may not have any traffic at all.
And it's also going to be impacting on small sole traders who are doing their business on a daily basis. And that's going to be passed on to, guess what? The Joe Public, people who don't even drive. Everyone's going to suffer because of this. Yeah. It will destroy London, it will destroy tourism, it will destroy the whole package. It's not been thought out. I've already written to him and said to him, where's his cost-benefit analysis on this? Yeah. How is he going to benefit Londoners? And also, I'm coming out in the next 2 weeks. I've been waiting for the American election and various other news items to actually calm down. I'm going to be coming out with which I'm delighted to come onto your show to talk about. The fact is the ULEZ expansion has not made any difference whatsoever. We've analysed 37 underground stations, at roadside and also down on the platform, and I can promise you there's no difference whatsoever. No, exactly, and we always knew that because they always make completely spurious claims with spurious backup scientific papers written by universities that get a huge amount of funding if they say the right thing. We know that's how these things work now. Everyone's in on it. But this is the thing.
if you live in a city, I don't understand this. There's one thing where, I mean, we've got a load of roadworks around my way, as a lot of areas do have across the country, and you can bet, I mean, we live in a one-way system. Frankly, we can't even, sometimes I'm like, I can't even work out how to get it out of my road, let alone get anywhere in a reasonable time frame. But it is the case that, there is traffic in a lot of places, and you might think, oh, wouldn't it be nice if there was less traffic? Well, you've got, 10 million more people than there used to be living in the country. Maybe that doesn't help. But also, if you live in a city, there's going to be traffic. If you want to live somewhere where there's no traffic, go and move to the countryside. People need to use their cars. I go by tube most everywhere. I get an Uber, if it's a journey that's not a direct journey, or it's late at night. Otherwise, I pretty much walk everywhere. I barely use my car. My car has cobwebs on the wing mirrors. But when I drive my car, because I need to drive my car. You're already charged per mile because you have to put petrol or diesel in, or top it up with electricity or whatever, and you're charged for that, and you're charged VAT and fuel duty. They already get money per mile from us driving. So what is the justification for adding yet another charge on every time someone gets in their car, even if they are absolutely need their car? As you say, they're a window cleaner, they're a plumber. They can't walk around and catch buses with all their tools. Where is he? Oh no, Howard's frozen. I love the fact that Howard is actually in his car while he's talking to us. But I think his screen is frozen because, oh no, we've lost him. Oh, what a shame. Well, let me bring in Benedict Spence because I'm sure you feel just as strongly about this, because it's just yet another charge, and it's all about, we want to stop you travelling around and having freedom.
Yeah, and perhaps that would be fine if public transport in London and other parts of the UK were good. But of course, famously, that's even worse.
In London, it is. We're very lucky. It's very good. Most parts of the country, people have to rely on very unreliable buses.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
Usually it's the only bus that you can get for an hour, and if it turns up sort of 5 minutes early or something like that, well, you're stuffed then.
I know people who live somewhere where genuinely there's a bus twice a day. And if that doesn't work with your working hours, well, tough. You have to get a car.
I mean, what's particularly impressive is if you try and get between Liverpool and Manchester of a day, these places are about 25 miles.
Major, wonderful, brilliant cities.
Major cities, 25 miles apart, it's impossible. It's absolutely dreadful.
I mean, it's absolutely anyway, we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, in the future. Really sorry we lost that line with Howard Cox. I'd like to say Ian Collins is here.
Hello.
Do you want to take part in our poll just before I finish the
What's the
poll?
question?
Question is, what does Benedict Spence look like? Is it a World War II prisoner of war, an extra in Narcos, a 1970s porn star, other, please specify?
I like the Narcos.
Yes. I do too.
Right,
it's been a very good income for me.
The final results, guys. 11% a World War II prisoner of war, 12% other, please specify. We've mentioned some of those. Super Mario. A lot of people keep thinking Peter Selleck came up. He's done
Peter Selleck. Do you mean Peter Sellers or Tom Selleck?
Tom Selleck.
Somewhere between the two.
But both of them.
I like the mixture of the two.
Yeah.
23% for an extra in Narcos, the drug series. 54% said a 1970s porn star. There you go.
A lot of you need your browsers checked as well.
We can check everyone's hard drive.
Somebody said that I look prosperous. I know what that means. It means I look fat. Very much so.
King Edward VIII prosperous.
Yeah. You're looking healthy.
Anyway, what are you talking about?
I was just thinking about the car thing. When did it? But that mission creep thing, where lots of different things start to happen, and then you take a step back and go, when did it become controversial to drive a car? For God's sake!
Well, you're a bad person.
Why is it some kind of offence to want to drive in your capital city? I mean, these are extraordinary.